across the plains. Hope rekindles in the crimson tide as freedom's anthem calls our names. Great again, we rise as one under stars that guide our way. A song of promise has begun, and strength returns in light of day. Fields of dreams are ripe once more. Factories hum with honest pride. Our banner waves on every shore, with courage marching by our side. Great again, we rise as one under stars that guide our way. A song of promise has begun, and strength returns in light of day. Through trials dark, we found our steel. The eagle's cry breaks through the night. In unity, our wounds now heal. We chase the dawn with fearless light. Great again, we rise as one under stars that guide our way. A song of promise has begun, and strength returns in light of day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? How's everybody doing out there? What's up, Dr. J? What's going on?
Oh, more of the same. Been another week.
How you feeling? Any better?
10 weeks to the day I got this stupid knee replaced, and I'm actually feeling better, feeling like I own my leg again.
Oh, good. Well, that's good news. That's
So,
always good news to hear.
yeah, I'm walking around rather than hobbling.
Right. Yeah, well, that beats it all. So, guys, we got a really good show for you. We got Mark Davis tonight. I'm going to bring him on in a minute. He's going to be talking about the FBI descended upon Fulton County in Georgia, and Mark is actually the guy. He's one of the centerpieces of a lot of hard work he's done, and he's working with a lot of other election integrity people. I'm really proud of him, and I'm proud to call him my friend. I'm going to bring him in right now. Here you go, Mark. How you doing?
Hey, everybody.
What's going on?
How you doing, Mark?
Good to see you.
You got a lot to talk about tonight, don't you?
Oh my gosh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
There's
What do you
a
want
lot
to start with
happened in the
first?
last couple of months for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. What do you want to talk about first? Go for it.
So I think last time I was on, I had told you guys that I had heard from the DOJ finally last year, towards the end of last year. I forget the exact day now. What? It was the same day Charlie Kirk got shot.
Oh wow.
September 10th, I think it was. So I heard from them, and then I didn't hear any more after that call. It was a call from an investigator about a complaint I had filed a while back.
Right.
And then I heard from the FBI on, let's see, that was, I think, in January, I think it was. And they invited me in, I think it was January 15th, I got the call, and then they invited me in on the 16th, if I'm getting my dates right.
Right.
And I went down to the FBI field office down in
Atlanta,
Chamblee.
right? Oh, Chamblee. Okay.
That was a trip.
Wow.
We had a guy here in Atlanta a few years back that killed a couple of FBI agents, so they amped up security.
Oh, wow.
And when you come pulling up to that building, it's kind of up on a hill, and they've got this gatehouse now out front of it, and a steel gate that looks like it would take an impact from a tank.
Wow.
And so you had to park in this little narrow strip out front and then go through security. And when you go through security, you give them your ID, they verify it, and then they verify that you have an appointment. And then they invite you to come through security, and you got to take off anything metal and everything. And then they sit you down, and you have to, just wait there for somebody to come and fetch you. And it's the funniest thing. These two guys came through after me, and they looked like Republicans. Just for fun, I looked up at them, and I said, "First time."
Yeah.
But so anyway, these two agents fetched me and took me up the hill, and we go into the building, and then immediately take a left into a conference room. And so I had an interview with them for about an hour and a half, and they had U.S. Attorney Albus on the call, and they recorded it for their analysts to review later.
Oh, cool.
I shouldn't get into what was discussed in the meeting.
Yeah, don't get in trouble.
But I was one of a number of people that were interviewed. When they finally decided to go into Fulton County, they gave the judge an affidavit, which has been released now. It's been redacted.
Okay. Everything's redacted.
I was not named in that affidavit, perhaps because it was focused on Fulton County. There were a lot of us that were interviewed that were not named on the affidavit, but of the people who were, I know most of them. And I know most of what they would have told the FBI. I can't really say what's going to happen next because I really don't know. But my gut feeling is that they are probably going to find what they were told to expect to find by the people that they interviewed.
Right.
And when they do, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah. I can imagine, because I know a lot of what they found. Go ahead.
Well, initially I thought, after they went into Fulton, I thought, well, their next move is probably to turn around and go into a number of other counties. But now I'm not so sure about that, and here's why. There were some court cases going on involving Fulton, and when those court cases happened, the first thing, or one of the first things anyway, was to ask for preservation of documents.
All right.
And so the court ordered documents to be preserved. That was not necessarily the case in some of these other counties. That may vary from county to county depending on what legal actions took place there. But
wow.
So now I'm not so sure whether or not their next move will be to go into some other counties or not. But it would not surprise me at all if they don't end up going in the Secretary of State's office, because a lot of the issues have to do with the Secretary of State's office. And at least that's what I hope they do. I guess that remains to be seen. So anyway, those interviews continued. Mine was on a Friday, and they continued on into the weekend. And I assumed there were probably more that following week, but it wasn't that long after that interview that they actually ended up going into Fulton County. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what ends up happening. Fulton is now trying to get the ballots and all the other records that were taken. They're trying to get them back.
Well, of course.
Which is, it's just mind-boggling to me, because in another case, they actually made an argument to the judge that they should be permitted to destroy those documents. They said they were taking up too much space.
Oh, that's a shame.
And so it's wild to me that here they were in one case asking to destroy the documents. Now in another case that they filed, they want them all back desperately. Yeah. So
That's crazy.
It's just telling what they really don't want is anybody actually looking at that material.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
anyway, there's that. But then on, I think it was the 26th of last month, I get this in the mail.
Yeah.
Well, not in the mail. I got a knock on my front door. And after the lawfare I went through for years, knocks at my front door that I don't expect always put me on full alert. So I saw it was a FedEx that was left on my front porch. And I thought, oh, well, that's fine. It's probably from my CPA or something, you know?
Right.
But no, it was a letter from AT&T, and I've given Rich the link so that
we'll put it up.
Any of you guys want to read this stuff, it's a lot to read.
Man.
But it's basically a letter from AT&T telling me that they got a secret subpoena from Jack Smith years ago, and they complied with it. And now
hold on, Mark. For our overseas friends, Jack Smith, if you don't know, is the guy that the Biden administration made a special prosecutor on Trump for. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this was during Operation Arctic Frost, and I didn't know this until I dug into it, but over 400 people were targeted, and a lot of it was big names like members of Congress. There was Kash Patel. There was Susie Wiles, and you remember Kyle?
Yeah, it's his sister.
It's a friend of ours. That's Susie's brother.
Yeah.
And so they basically were saying that they complied with Jack Smith's subpoena during Arctic Frost, and now they've received another subpoena, but this one is from the U.S. Senate Homeland Security Committee Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations.
Right. Let's hold on a second. Tell the audience why you didn't know that Jack Smith subpoenaed your records.
Well, according to what's in here, AT&T and the letter they sent is really, really interesting if you read it. It's very, very carefully worded, because what they're basically saying is we got a secret subpoena. We were ordered to keep it secret, so we couldn't tell you we got it, but we got it and we complied with it. Yeah. And it gives all the records that were requested. It was for text messages, all this kind of stuff. It was basically all the activity on my phone during a 3-month period from November and December of 2020 and January of 2021.
Right.
So for 3 months, for a 3-month period, they got my records. Now here's where it gets interesting.
That's my son.
If you look at the timeline here, some of you guys know that I got sued by Fair Fight and Mark Elias along with True the Vote, and we were served with subpoenas on Christmas Eve of 2020. So that case started very, very, very early. Okay. Now, fast forward to 2023. Our case was getting ready to go into a hearing, but Fannie Willis and the Fulton 19's case was just really getting warmed up. So the timelines of those two cases were very, very different. Okay.
Right.
And so Jack Smith's subpoena for these records from 2020 actually happened in 2023. Now, my understanding is that AT&T doesn't even keep a lot of stuff for that long. The metadata are what they call tolling data, which is stuff like what numbers you called, where the call was placed from, what was the duration, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They probably did get that. I'm not sure how much else they actually got, because the subpoena for those records from that time period came in 2023. But I would just about bet money that Fannie Willis and Jack Smith and all these rogue prosecutors and the Biden DOJ and all these players that were out to get Trump, I bet you they were coordinating all over the country.
Oh, yeah, you know that.
I bet
What's
you
up,
the
Anglo?
depositions that I gave.
I'll read it in a bit.
I bet
Thank
the
you, brother.
depositions that I gave
Hey, Linda.
during Fair Fight versus True the Vote, I gave 2 of them, and they were extensive. I mean, they felt more like colonoscopies.
Hey, Mark, just to interrupt, you got a guy who goes by Anglo-Saxon. He's from across the pond, and he's saying he's been looking forward to this.
Oh, all right.
You got
Good
a
to see
fan
you.
across the pond. Thank you, sir, by the way. Thank you. Love you.
So I bet you that the subpoenas that I gave were given to Fannie Willis and Jack Smith and whoever else wanted to see them. I can't prove that. I don't have any evidence of that, but it wouldn't surprise me because a lot of the questions that were asked during those depositions didn't seem to have a whole lot to do with the actual Fair Fight versus True the Vote case. And it seemed like it was a fishing expedition in many respects. So I think they learned a lot from those depositions. And I think that also helps to explain why I never actually got a subpoena from Fannie Willis or the DOJ. I mean, this is the crazy thing about it. Apparently I was being spied on, but nobody actually wanted anything I have to say to be on the record anywhere.
Tell them what the message that went out about you.
Well, here's what I've been told. Now, this is, I'm getting off into the weeds and into some conspiracy territory here.
But you know it's real.
There was a story put out by Project Veritas. It was episode 2 in their series. I can probably find it somewhere. But the story was about this whistleblower who was a former investigative reporter from South America. And when that story came out, a friend of mine contacted me and said, "Hey, Mark, you ought to check with them and see if your name's in there anywhere." And I laughed, like, what? And she said, "No, seriously, you ought to at least ask." And I'm like, all right. So I actually emailed Project Veritas and I introduced myself and I said, "Hey, I'm just curious, is my name in there anywhere?" And I got a reply the next morning early. And they said, "Well, we'll ask our whistleblower and we'll see." Okay.
Wow.
Well, then an hour later or so, 2 things happened. Their whistleblower gave me a follow on X.
Wow.
And I heard back from Project Veritas and they said, "She does remember your name. We're going to do a search." Okay.
Wow.
And, I was partnered up with a former FBI agent named Derek Somerville. And it turns out his name was in there too, according to her.
Right.
But I asked him, "Well, what did it say?" And according to the whistleblower, in August 2022, she got a message from Bill Barr's daughter asking her to dig up dirt on me to silence me.
No shit.
And that is a term that I've heard a time or two in recent months. And what's interesting, I said, "Well,
tell them who James Comey's daughter is."
Bill Barr's daughter.
Or I'm sorry, Bill Barr's daughter. Yeah,
Bill Barr's daughter actually used to be an attorney at the DOJ, and she had to leave when Bill Barr took over, so it wouldn't be a conflict.
Right.
And or at least that's what I've been told. And so I asked, "Well, how did the whistleblower respond?" And I was told that she said, "Fannie Willis does not want Mark Davis investigated by anyone."
Boom.
That explains why I never got a subpoena from Fannie Willis. I've always theorized that I never got one, even though almost everybody around me did. I never got one, and I think it's because she didn't want her grand jury hearing exculpatory evidence about that phone call between Raffensperger and Trump. That's what I think. I've always thought that. And that just corroborated that. But it also explains why I never heard from anybody in the federal government at all during the Biden administration.
Yep.
Now, I have since,
Right.
the current DOJ, yes, but under the Biden DOJ, no. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody from the January 6th committee. I never got a subpoena from Jack Smith, even though he was spying on me, apparently. I never heard from anybody involved with Trump's second impeachment. I mean, literally nothing. And I'm going to show you some updated data here in a few minutes that I think might explain why that is. But
you got a link, put it up.
It seems obvious to me that these folks were cooperating, and there's evidence of that if you dig and look for it. There's congressional testimony and all kind of other stuff that's come out that shows a lot of that stuff was going on. But it's just wild to me and potentially unlawful because, you know, when you are subpoenaed, when you get a subpoena issued, I mean, we should be at least made aware of it.
Right.
I was not. But then I've been told by more than one attorney that eventually, even if it's done in secret, eventually they're supposed to tell you it happened. Okay. It's been 5 years now.
Yeah. Right.
Since those days. And it's
eventually is a long time in their eyes.
Since Jack Smith's subpoena, I'm just now finding out about this.
Yeah.
That's messed up. So
yep.
I reached out to Jay Sekulow at the American Center for Law and Justice.
Right.
I don't know if there's a class action going on anywhere or what, but this happened to over 400 people. Yep. This is not cool.
And let me say this because you said to me earlier. Hold on, you said to me earlier.
But
that you can you hear me?
Did I lose you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Did I lose you?
Yeah, I think Mark. I can hear
you.
You.
Or did I just lose my sound?
You lost your sound.
Okay.
Your sound. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. I was just saying. I'm sorry to interrupt. I interrupt a lot. Everybody knows that.
No,
sorry.
You should if I cut out because my graphic card acts up every now and then.
You had just said there were 400 people, but it's a hell of a lot more than that, right? Because you had said to me earlier, you know, Rich, that you're in those files because Mark and I talked an awful lot about all of the stuff that he's about to talk about back then. And so, in other words, when they get his phone records, they have the records of everybody that he spoke to.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more than just 400. Yeah.
We should put that in context because during that period, okay, I was literally working on Trump versus Raffensperger. So I was talking to election integrity people, activists, other analysts, Trump attorneys. I even had a call one day from White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. So what they were doing with those subpoenas was casting a dragnet. They were trying to find out who we all are so that they could come after us if they wanted to.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. I mean,
and the entire thing was to cover up the fact that they stole an election. There's no other way you can see that. Everything they've done since that election, to Trump, to his supporters, to guys like you that did good stuff for him legally, it's all to cover up the fact that they stole an election.
Well, let me clarify on that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I've ever made that claim because from a legal standard, that's not how it works. And I know I'm getting off into the weeds here.
No. Go ahead. Weeds are good. Okay.
But in election law, I've never, in any case I've ever testified in that I can recall, I don't recall ever using words like stolen or fraudulent or anything like that. Now, residency fraud is residency fraud, but that's a different kind of claim. And I guess what I'm getting at is in an actual elections case, you don't go in there slinging rhetoric and hyperbole. You go in there and you say, these are the violations of the law that occurred. You know, these are the illegal or irregular votes that were cast, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's kind of like the old Dragnet show, just the facts.
Yeah.
You know? And so I've never seen a need in any elections case to actually make claims like that. And so to my knowledge,
I get it. I'm making the claim.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is when we start talking about fraud and theft and all that kind of stuff, we are raising the bar on what we must prove.
Right.
We're making the case more difficult than it needs to be. Like in the Trump case, you know, I was supposed to testify for President Trump as an expert witness. And I would have gone in there and I would have made a claim that we had systemic irregularities in that election that occurred in sufficient numbers to put the outcome of the election in doubt. That's the legal standard here in Georgia and probably in other states as well. I know Georgia law better than anywhere else, but
Yeah, you're the expert.
But we had
really
had state and federal violations going on, and I'll update you on those since I've got data handy here. Rich, can you pull up that graphic on Georgia residency?
Yeah.
Stuff.
Hang on. The residency. Yep. Here we go. There we go. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Let me zoom in a little. There you go. That should be better.
It's kind of small print.
Yeah, sorry. We'll go each one. I could do that. How's that?
Yeah, that'll work. Okay.
Election year? Yeah.
So that first column is just the election year, basically. You got the numbers from 2020, 2022, and 2024. Okay.
Right.
So if you go to that second column, in 2020, there was 588,226 changes of address filed on the voter records that I examined right after the election. Okay.
Right.
And then in 2022, that number was 637,456. In 2024, it was 540,763. Those numbers vary wildly because, we do periodic purges. For inactivity, because they moved and they didn't respond to a notice that was mailed to them. For a variety of reasons, we do purges. And so those numbers will fluctuate. The third column where it says became unqualified voters, this one really matters because here's what's happened. All right, you had voters who moved from one jurisdiction, which in Georgia is a county, and in Louisiana, it might be a parish.
Listen to this, guys. This is great, what he's about to say.
We had voters who moved from one jurisdiction to another and, according to the data, did not re-register in their new jurisdiction by the deadline for the election. Now, there's a 30-day grace period right before each election where if you move within that 30 days, you can still vote in your old county. But outside of that, the law doesn't allow you to do that.
Right.
If you indeed move permanently. If you move temporarily, go to college or go serve your country or what have you, that's different. But all of these were filed as permanent changes of address. So there's probable cause there, I believe, to investigate people who, in that fourth column, went back and voted in their old county. But while we're on this number, I want you to look at how large these numbers are. All right, these are people who became, if they moved permanently, they became unqualified voters. That means they didn't have a lawful place to vote anywhere. They had lost their residency in their old jurisdiction, and they were unregistered in their new jurisdiction. So under the law, they didn't have anywhere to vote.
Right.
They were basically, just unqualified voters. They were still on the voter rolls, but were no longer qualified because they didn't live in their old jurisdiction anymore.
Right.
Now, to go and vote in their old county, all right, this is the fourth column.
Right.
This is where it gets problematic because under Georgia law, we can only vote in the county that we actually live in outside of that grace period.
Right.
And so they would have gone in there and they would have shown a driver's license that they hadn't updated. It would have matched to a voter roll that hadn't been updated either. And then the poll worker has no idea they're being deceived. They ask the voter to execute a voter certificate that says they are who they claim to be and that they live where they claim to live. And right at the bottom of it, there is a warning, a written warning about not violating OCGA 21-2-562, which makes it a felony to provide false information on a voter certificate. And when they signed those voter certificates, they arguably committed a felony.
Yeah.
And then when they walked over to those voting machines and they cast a ballot as an unqualified elector, then that was another felony. Right. And if there was a federal race of any kind on that ballot, be it president, U.S. Senate, Congress, whatever, then lying on about their residency in registering or voting is another felony under 52 USC 10307C.
Right.
52 USC 10307 is literally, did I lose you again?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool.
Did you guys
Sorry.
hear me?
Yeah. Well, we hear you the whole time. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if there's a federal race on the ballot, that's also a felony under federal law. And that section that I cite there, 52 U.S. 10307, that is literally the prohibited acts section of the Voting Rights Act. It covers residency fraud. It
Right.
covers double voting. It covers voter intimidation, all kinds of other subjects. It's an interesting statute to read.
Right.
But those are the numbers that where I believe there's clear probable cause to investigate those folks.
Right.
But
Now-
the problem we have here, and I've told this to everybody, the state election board, I've told it to the DOJ, I've told it to the FBI, I've told everybody that I know. The problem we have here is that if any investigators, be it the GBI or the FBI or whoever, if they ever actually tried to do a full investigation of these issues, it would literally be one of the largest criminal investigations in Georgia history or even in U.S. history.
Yeah.
It's just, as a practical matter, it's very
Mind-boggling.
unlikely to happen.
It's mind-boggling. Yeah.
Well, it would cost millions of dollars. It would take years to do.
Yep.
And you could never complete it. People would die before it would be completed.
Yep.
People would move out of the country.
Yep.
People would be unable to be found. You couldn't realistically do it. But what I hope somebody will do is at least take a random sample and go out and investigate these issues and come back with a report and says, okay, we pulled a random sample of 1%, and we went out and conducted X number of interviews. And out of those interviews, here's what we found. But here's the interesting part. Over in the next column, corroborating evidence. Okay, so here's what happened with that. So these folks that went back and voted in their old county, thousands of them came back after the election and finally got around to updating their driver's licenses and or their voter registration, because an update to your driver's license will trigger an update to your voter registration.
Right.
And even the DOJ recognizes that that's lawful. If you go to the DOJ frequently asked questions page on the 1993 National Voter Registration Act,
Right.
Section 3 there says, yes, it is lawful for the states to use driver's license dated update. So anyway, the point is they came back by the thousands after each election. And when they updated their driver's licenses or their voter registrations, it was to the exact same address that they told the post office they were moving to months or even years before the election. And if you look at 2020, so far there's been 42.76% who have done that. And then as of February of this year, from the 2022 group, 9,593, which is only 36.99%, but it's been less time for them to do those updates. Same thing with 2024. So far, just since the 2024 general election, 11,776, which is 32.38%, have updated. And so
That's a big residency problem.
yeah, it's a series of residency violations.
Are you, hold on, Mark, hold on. Are you saying in that provided corroborating evidence, is that 15,065? Is that from 2020?
Yeah.
Well, now, guys, remember, Joe Biden, wink, wink, won Georgia by 11,779 votes.
Well, not
And
only
here, Mark found 15,065. Now, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. That doesn't mean that Trump won the election, but it does mean, I believe, in Georgia, a judge, if the evidence is provided, a judge can call the election null and they'd have to hold it again. Is that true?
well, a judge could find, the claim in Trump versus Raffensperger was that these were systemic irregularities. And under Georgia law, systemic irregularities is grounds for a judge to set an election aside. And if you go back to the phone call between Trump and Raffensperger, and you scroll down to where Kurt Hilbert starts talking, that's this data that they're arguing over. Okay.
Yep.
And
in other words, hold on. Mark's too humble. In other words, what they were arguing about was a report that Mark gave to the Trump legal team that Trump was actually reading on the phone to Raffensperger. And that's the famous or infamous audio file, the phone call, that they removed the exculpatory evidence prior to. In other words, he was saying, well, but, he was saying to Raffensperger, well, you got 30, whatever, thousand here, 15,000, 65, whatever. And and he goes, just find me 11,780, right? And and Raffensperger removed that exculpatory evidence and tried to make it look like Trump was ordering him to cheat for him. And that wasn't the case at all. It was Mark that actually provided the data for the Trump legal team that Trump was reading. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Rich, if you go back and read that part of the transcript, okay, right. They even say in there, just this issue alone, keep in mind, I was only one of a number of analysts that were providing data to the Trump attorneys.
Right.
But they were saying basically, just this one set of issues alone is enough. And now the evidence bears that out. I mean, just the ones, I mean, there's 35,000 from 2020 that should have been investigated, but there's 15,000 where there's corroborating evidence.
Exactly.
And so, and this is the crazy part. Nobody ever investigated this stuff. I mean, You heard the press and everybody else claiming, oh, it's all nonsense. None of that was valid.
Right. It was the cleanest election we ever had. And think about this. How many, you probably know the number, I don't, but how many people registered to vote in Georgia that year that used a post office box, which is illegal?
I actually have that data somewhere. I can give you that number. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
It's a large number, isn't it?
It was thousands. I mean, but it's not just that. Okay. When it comes to residency issues, these folks, is my audio still working?
Yeah. We hear you the whole time.
All right. Let me just turn that up a little bit. Okay, but when it comes to these residency issues, these movers are just one bucket. And when I use the term bucket, in elections cases in the last few years, we've gotten to the point where we kind of group issues in buckets.
Right.
This would be called the mover bucket. But there's other types of residency issues. There's folks that register at commercial mail receiving agencies like UPS stores and things like that. Then there's folks that'll register at commercial addresses where they don't actually live. Right. Like hair salons and accounting firms, even lawyers' offices, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other types of residency issues. And if you look at David, Kate, and Jason Frazier, a couple of friends of mine, they've been doing some great videos on X where they'll go out with a camera and actually show people some of these locations.
Yeah.
And then also we have hundreds or even thousands of people that register at churches or nonprofits and things like that.
Right.
I think most of them are homeless and they don't have an address. And SB 202, they changed that so that if they request absentee ballots, they have to get them mailed to the courthouse and go pick them up there so they can check and make sure they are who's supposed to be getting them at least.
Right.
I mean, I feel like they could tighten that up some, but we got those issues big time. But also, there's a friend of mine named Philip Davis. You might want to have him on sometime, but he's a ballot data analyst, and he's done some amazing work. If you go back to the 2020 recount, okay, when he analyzed that data, he found all kinds of ballots that have been duplicated and so on and so forth. That case, 2023-025, I think it was. I'm trying to remember the exact number.
It's unreal.
It's called the Moncla Rossi case. And it was suppressed. Mine have been suppressed for years now. But that one was suppressed for quite a while. But then eventually the state election board managed to hear it, and they did find that there were duplicate ballots in Fulton. But Fulton has a whole lot more problems with it. The politics of our state election board is really a difficult mess. It's a tough egg to unscramble.
Oh, wow.
But there have been cases that have been suppressed for years. One of those I'm sure y'all heard about not too long ago, about the poll tapes, where we had absentee ballots that were scanned, and there was all kind of sketchy stuff that went on there. They would scan them at the early voting locations, but then they transported the equipment to one of the central hubs in Fulton, and then they had taken the data cards out and they put them in different tabulators in order to print out the poll tapes. What they're supposed to do under the election rules is they're supposed to print out a 0 tape for each tabulator to make sure that it says 0, that there's no votes recorded or no votes stored in memory when they start the process. Okay. Then they're supposed to print closing tapes, and they're supposed to have opening and closing tapes as proof that everything was done correctly. And they were missing opening tapes. They had closing tapes that weren't signed. They're supposed to be signed by the poll manager and 2 witnesses. And according to the data, those were produced at the elections hub, and those poll managers and poll workers that were supposed to sign those tapes, they probably weren't even there. And so I guess what I'm trying to get across here is that if you look at this giant case log from 2020 that the Secretary of State's office and the state election board had, the cases they didn't care that much about, they allowed to flow on through to the state election board. But the cases that were politically explosive or what have you, they have kept a lot of those suppressed. Now, that poll tape one managed to get through because the executive director of the state election board managed to spot it, and he insisted on it being heard. But there's other explosive cases that are out there that they still haven't heard. And right now, the state election board is trying to hear my 2020 and 2022 cases, and I'm about to turn in my 2024 case. I don't know what's going to happen with all of these, and I really don't know what they're going to do with any of this other than, maybe go back to the feds with it.
Crazy.
I mean, if it goes to the GBI, we had some recent stories come out that show that they are team players, and so I don't think we can trust the
Bureau of
GBI
Investigation
to investigate this. I think if anybody's going to do it, it would probably be the feds.
Yeah,
but we'll just have to see. And I don't want to get into what I told the feds, but I will say this: I have told everybody that I will show people exactly how to do this analysis so that they can replicate it.
In other states,
and I've even published the steps on my X account. I've actually published exactly how to do this analysis. Yep. So anybody in the country can do it. And the reason that I'm saying that is because from what I've been able to tell from various AI platforms, everywhere in the country, not just Georgia, but everywhere in the country, we're supposed to be registered and voting from our residence address, where we actually live, our domicile. Okay. That's where we're supposed to be registered and voting from. And so if these issues are happening here in Georgia, I would literally bet money that they're happening in almost every other state in the country.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story.
I lost you again, didn't I?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? How about now?
Sorry, everybody. This graphics card just won't quit.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So I'll give you just a little example of stuff that I went through. I had Frank Rizzo. He was a famous mayor in Philadelphia. A lot of people know about him. And I had volunteered for his campaign the year he was a Democrat his whole life, but then he ran as a Republican for the last time he ran. And he was a mayor, he was the chief of police, mayor again, all that. And he had told me about the Philadelphia spigot system. And the spigot system was they would find out, like he explained this to us because he said, look, I know the party, what they do, and this is what we're up against. And he explained how now today with mail-in ballots and computers, it's so much easier to do this. But what they did was they'd find out how many people died from the voter rolls and how many people moved out of the state. In other words, people who would never know they voted. And then you would see the school buses, bunch of school buses pull up to a voting place, to a polling place. And then people would get off those school buses and there'd be one guy there on each school bus with an index card. And he would literally hand it to each person. And that was who they were supposed to be to vote that day. And then they'd all get back on the bus and go to the next county and have different index cards for that county. And they would just continually vote all day long, named as people. This is why they don't want voter ID, people, because with voter ID, they couldn't pull this crap. And that's why they wanted mail-in ballots. And they even wanted you to be able to register to vote online, because then what's to stop them from taking, what's to stop them, Stacey Abrams, from matching up your voter rolls to the USPS database to see who moved and to the Social Security database to see who died, right?
Well, here's the thing, Rich. If you go back, and I know most of you guys are probably not going to remember this, but I was actually working with voter data in 1993 when the 1993 National Voter Registration Act was actually passed. And Republicans at the time were pounding the table saying it was going to lead to dirty voter rolls and the kind of crap that you were just talking about. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence of that stuff that has come out, not just here in Georgia, but in other states as well.
Right.
And the argument that comes from the left is, well, we should err on the side of keeping people registered and so on and so forth. So we'll have these bogus registrations on the voter rolls for years before they're finally removed.
Yep.
And in those years, it can lead to fraudulent voting, and especially residency fraud. And the message that I think we all need to be carrying to our public servants is that, it's not okay to have dirty voter rolls, because they do lead. That's what facilitates residency fraud and people assuming identifications of other people and all this other nonsense. And the other thing I'm really getting tired of is a lot of you guys are probably familiar with the Heritage database that tracks, election cases and vote fraud and all this kind of stuff.
What's up, Gina?
And you hear this narrative from the left. Oh, well, if you look at the Heritage database, it doesn't prove what they think it proves. It proves that there's almost none. Well, that's such a crap argument. It's kind of like saying, well, I went deer hunting all last season and I never saw a deer. They must be extinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at it and you compare it to situations where the police have stopped enforcing the law, they basically thrown up their hands and said, I give up. We're not getting any support.
Right. Well, then there's no crime. Yeah.
Yeah. The crime statistics actually go down, even though the population is suffering.
Exactly. Yeah. That I can't stand when that kind of stuff happens, and it happens all the time. But surprisingly, it mostly, if not always, happens in blue districts, in blue states. I don't know of any Republicans other than Raffensperger and Kemp that would do stuff like that.
Well, one of the other things, too, is in all the elections cases that I've served in over the last 23 years, I've seen evidence of violations of election law committed by voters or by elections officials. And I mean, thousands of them.
Yeah.
And the ones that end up actually being brought into an actual case, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, we don't actually have to bring those voters in court. Like and if there's a redistricting error or some kind of thing, usually it's been enough to go into there and just prove that it happened. But in the last case I testified in, the judge actually, even though he agreed that we had dozens of voters who had been given the wrong ballot, he said we should have brought them all in and put them on the witness stand and made them testify. Even though we had their voter certificates that showed they got the wrong damn ballot.
Right.
And
well,
it's such crap.
Well, tell them, explain to them how the thing I can't stand, because they're still saying it. And the number always rises. It was like 50 cases were thrown out because Trump didn't have enough evidence. Now it's up to like 62. 62 cases of 2020. But the fact of the matter was that they never even allowed an evidentiary hearing. So they never looked at the evidence. They just said he had no standing.
Well, first of all, a lot of those cases weren't even Trump's cases.
That's
and then,
correct.
Like the Trump versus Raffensperger case, that one got slow walked through our judicial system and then finally had a hearing date set for a couple of days after January 6th.
Yeah.
And so that phone call with Raffensperger was an attempt to settle that case that happened on January the 2nd. And they all knew they had a hearing date coming up just days away. But the certification was on the 6th. So the real deadline was on the 6th. And so when they were unable to resolve that case before that happened, they dismissed Trump versus Raffensperger on the 7th before the hearing because there was no real reason left to hold a hearing.
Right.
It was not an admission that the case didn't have merit. It was an admission that the clock had run out.
Yeah.
And the other maddening thing here is that in a normal elections case, like say it's for a state house race or a county race or something like that, okay?
Right.
The world's not going to end if that one state representative doesn't go to the legislature immediately. The case can proceed, okay? But when you're talking about President of the United States, okay, the amount of time that it takes to prepare a massive case and then try it or have a hearing and then get a ruling and all of that, we can't have a nation that does without a president that long.
Right.
And so the way the system is set up right now, even if you had a slam dunk of an elections case in a presidential election, I have to question whether or not our system even has the capability of hearing it expeditiously, getting through all of that mountain of evidence, and then finally getting an actual verdict. I mean, these by law, under Georgia law, these are supposed to be heard quickly, but that didn't happen with that Trump case. And then there was another case that wasn't even related to Trump, but because the issues were some of the same that Trump was talking about, the judge in that case delayed his verdict for months in an elections case.
It's amazing how corrupt a lot of these judges are.
So I don't know. I don't know that our system is even really set up properly to deal correctly with a challenge in a presidential election.
Well, that's another. Yeah, you know what? That's true because a lot of states have a time limit. A lot of states have a time limit on it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you back.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of states put a time limit on the amount of time that you have to present evidence. And you saw after 2020, I mean, Georgia, along with my state of Pennsylvania and all the other battleground states, they held legislature hearings, and you participated in the Georgia one. I remember, I have the video. And
I've participated in several. I've appeared before committees of the Georgia General Assembly 4 times now, and I'm a member of the Georgia Republican Party's Election Confidence Task Force. So we often have a lot of interaction with the General Assembly. But going back to what you were saying, here in Georgia, if you want to file a challenge to an election, you only have 5 business days following a certification.
Right.
So basically, you have election day, and then certification usually takes about a week. And then you've got 5 days. So you basically have only about a 2-week window to do all your analysis,
gather the data,
write your case, file it, So what a lot of these folks will do is they'll file a placeholder case while they get all that stuff together.
Okay.
And there's been a couple of times where, I usually work pretty quick. But there's been a couple of times where, a few times where candidates that are contemplating a challenge will go ahead and just file one because it stops the clock.
Right.
And then they'll come back and amend their complaint and put the real meat and potatoes in there. And that's really about all you can do in a situation like that because the window's just not large enough.
Right.
And unfortunately, those laws applied even in the presidential race.
Isn't that crazy?
It took extra time for the presidential race to be certified here in Georgia, so that window widened a bit. But then that narrowed the window from the time the case was filed to certification in Congress on January 6th.
Yeah.
So it's a mess, and I don't know how it's going to end up shaking out.
And
Georgia politics right now is a mess in general.
Oh, yeah.
We're really fighting to get our election integrity bills done. We've got a lot of good proposals on the table. One of them is my Virginia bill that'll help correct some of this stuff. But we've got a lengthy list. And some of the good news that's come out is the Blue Ribbon Study Committee hearings that I participated in last year. We thought there was only going to be 6 of them. And that was it. Well, the decision got made that they're not going to end the Blue Ribbon Study Committee. It's going to continue. So
good. I'm
looking forward to more hearings next year. And as far as I'm concerned, Georgia is kind of like Florida. If you go back and look at what happened in Florida after the mess in the 2004 election, Bush v. Gore.
Right.
If you look
Gore's
at that
the one that started all this crap, by the way. I'll say this. Gore was the one that he knew he lost. He knew he didn't have a constitutional path because there were more Republican states and there were more Republicans in the Congress than Democrats. He knew it, but he decided he wanted to screw with the system anyway. And ever since that, we've had election integrity issues. We've had nobody trusts anybody who wins. But go ahead.
Well, if you look at the aftermath of that, the state of Florida went into overdrive trying to reform their election laws. Now,
right.
The narrative that we hear is that they've now got it all squared away. That's not true. I know some people in Florida that I keep in touch with, and we talk issues a lot. And on the surface, from a rhetorical perspective, they're able to make those arguments. But when you really dig into the meat and potatoes of the code and all of this and the procedures that are actually followed, Florida still has election issues. But what I hope will happen here in Georgia, since we've become notorious for election problems, I'm hoping that once we get a new governor and a new Secretary of State and a new Georgia General Assembly, because I'm really unsure about what's going to happen this session.
Yeah.
I'm really not sure. I'm really worried about what's going to end up happening.
How come?
There's a lot of political conflicts that are making getting things done very, very difficult. There's some elected officials that I know personally that I'm friends with that I have a great deal of faith in. And they're being put in just impossible positions because they have made promises to the election integrity people that they're going to go down there and they're going to fix some things. And they're just not being allowed to do it because of all of these competing political influences going into the 2026 election. So it's right now it's really doubtful how much we're really going to get done down there. And a lot of my friends in the election integrity movement are going to be furious because we didn't get things done. And I can't really blame them because every cycle it seems like we're playing Charlie Brown in the football.
It's like the process is the punishment. When you got to go through the system, it's just mind-numbingly slow to get anything done. Yeah, Louis said it's called the machine.
And then you got people out there saying, "Oh, well, it's time to quit talking about 2020." Well, we never really talked about 2020.
Really did.
All the arguments that the election integrity people were making, they were getting shut down not just by the media, but by our own Secretary of State,
Right.
And
And who was a Republican, by the
He's
way?
a Republican. Yeah.
Real POS. Yeah.
And, you know, the left says, oh, well, even your Republican Secretary of State said blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. Well, you know, just because he's got an R by his name doesn't mean he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Think
and
of how
that's
many
bad.
Republican. James Comey is a Republican. Okay. I mean, think about it.
Anyway, I've covered a lot of ground here. I'm kind of feeling like maybe we ought to see if anybody's got questions.
Anybody got some questions? Pop them up. Jade, you got any questions?
First, I got to unmute my mic.
There you go.
But no, this is all very fascinating, and you know, I don't think there's any question. I remember even just during the 2020 elections, right after, they had video footage of people, you know, taking ballots. And I remember one specifically, the woman ran a batch of ballots, went to the end of the machine. You figure she's going to put them away. She straightens them all up and runs them through the machine again.
Yeah, because they shut the QR code off.
Here's what's really interesting about that. Okay. There is evidence on the table. Everybody says there's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, that's not true. There is evidence. Okay. In the 2020 recount, there were double scan ballots. The state election board found that that actually did happen. And the analyst who worked on that is a good friend of mine. And I've been through his work with him repeatedly. I've been on Zoom calls with him where he's educating candidates and elected officials on these issues.
Right.
He's got the evidence cold that kind of stuff happened in the recount. Well, the reason it happened in the recount is because if it hadn't, the numbers in the
election.
Hold on, I actually think I have that handy.
Democracy is a myth. Anglo says. Thoughts?
Hang on, let me just show you something here.
Oh, listen to this. Can you guys hear that? Because I read Anglo's his message is prompt. My Alexa is going off about Anglo-Saxon democracy. That's amazing. And she won't.
That's funny.
Alexa, shut up. All right, sorry. That was funny. Thank you, Anglo.
Well,
Anyway, Mark.
Let me just
Anglo said
right quick.
democracy is a. He said democracy is a myth. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily agree, but give me just 1 second and let me try to.
We don't like democracy over here because we think democracy is, you know, two wolves and a sheep are deciding. They're voting on what's for lunch.
Oh yeah. We're a constitutional.
But we know what you mean, though. We know what you mean.
Yeah.
Hey, 42's here. How you doing? He said, I got the start time wrong. 42 is a guy that's kind of like you, Mark. He's over in the UK, though.
Right.
He's the guy that's very interested. What's that?
I just sent you a file if you can open it.
Yeah. Where'd you send it?
The way I sent the other stuff.
Is it a long, straight down two lists?
Yeah. That. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Pull that up. Okay.
Yeah. Oops. I can't zoom it. Yeah. Can you zoom it? You probably can.
Can everybody see it?
No, it's too small.
All right. Well,
hang on. If you send it to me.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
No, but I mean, did you email it or text it or whatever? Because then I can bring it up.
I sent it the same way I sent that other graphic earlier.
Yeah, but this one's smaller though.
I
don't have control over.
All right. Well, don't worry about it. But what it shows is that they took ballots during the recount from multiple different ballots, multiple different batches of ballots that are supposed to be kept separate. Right. They pulled ballots out and they created, they supplemented a whole nother batch or multiple batches. And so they basically pulled ballots and double counted them. And they did this, it appears, to try to make the recount numbers work, which, if you think logically about it, if they didn't have the ballots to make the recount numbers work, then that means they didn't have them in the original count either.
Right, exactly. That's why they had to cheat twice.
So this is the kind of thing that if the FBI backs this up, when they get through examining all those records,
Yeah.
it's going to be explosive. And I'll tell you this, guys, for everybody that's listening, if you don't follow Mad Liberals on X, you really, really should.
Mad Liberals?
Yeah. If you're interested in election integrity, you really want to follow him. He's one of the best ballot data analysts out there.
Data Republican's pretty good too.
Yeah. He has a site called ballotassure.com. And in it, he's got full reports on what he found from 2020 and 2024. In 2024, he was able to do a full analysis of the entire state. And I won't go down that rabbit hole too far, but they brought in a company in between.
Hold on, Lou.
Before the 2024 election, they brought in a company to clean up issues before they were made public. Because SB 189 that passed in 2024 required the state to make ballot image data public.
Right.
And so they knew independent analysts were going to be reviewing that data. So they brought in a company called Enhanced Voting, which is a bizarre word, just like Dominion, you know.
Yeah.
But they brought them in ostensibly to do an audit. Okay.
Get you up there, Lou.
But what they were really providing was tech support. And so they went through and cleaned up a lot of the issues that would have been found by outside auditors before that data was released. And it's just wild, the stuff they do, you know, and one of the big issues from 2020 was with double voting. And we'll never really know how much of that happened. What's really interesting is if you got an absentee voter data file right after the 2020 election, and you go today and you download that same data, it's different. There's a field in there that explains when they cancel a ballot, the poll workers would write in that field the various reasons for canceling the ballot.
Right.
There were over 3,800 different reasons.
Wow.
And if you go and download that same data today, you'll find, I think, 6 or 8. What they did was all those handwritten notes that the poll workers put in there,
right,
they wiped them out and put in the word other. Now, why would you do that?
Well, why do you think?
Well, there were over 225,000 ballots that were mailed out to people, received by people.
Because they don't want people to know how many issues people had.
Well, these ballots that people received were returned, and then they were marked canceled. So those voters could then vote either during early voting or on election day. Here's the problem. They passed the state election board rule on May 18th of 2020 because of COVID that allowed the counties who were going to be flooded by absentee ballots, it allowed them to take them out of the envelopes and scan them up to 3 weeks before the election. So once you separate a ballot from an envelope, you don't know whose ballot it was.
Right, because the name's not on the ballot, it's on the envelope. So you don't know whose vote it is.
So how do you go back and cancel a ballot you've already scanned?
Right.
And you know, this is one of the issues that I talked to the government about. You know, we may never get to the bottom of that. Right. I was asked to do that analysis by the Secretary of State's office because I was still on good terms with them. And they sent me, they said if I wanted to look at that data, I was going to have to sign an NDA. So I said, well, send it over. I'll take a look. Well, they sent me the NDA and it read like a catch and kill. Yeah. I could have gone in and done the analysis. I could have learned everything. Okay. But I could have never talked about it. I would have never been able to show anybody that data. I would have never been able to report my conclusions.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It would have put a muzzle on me for the rest of my life.
No, that's Mark. That's brilliant because
think about it.
Think about it. They say, "Oh no, we brought him in." Yeah,
it's sinisterly brilliant.
And then it's brilliant because by the fact that you go in there, precludes you from saying anything. Brilliant.
Right. Exactly. Lou has a question for you, Mark. He says, have specific individuals been identified who were responsible for their actions to allow and promote these fraudulent ballot anomalies? And what has this current administration done to prosecute and hold them accountable?
Oh, all right. If you guys go to my Federalist page.
Yeah, he has he writes for the Federalist, guys. Molly Hemingway's thing.
Let me see if I can find that right quick.
Which one? The one you just published?
There was another one that just came out I wanted to show you guys.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
I sent you that link
yeah, you did.
Earlier.
In fact, I'll get it. Hang on. I'll pull it up. Give me a sec. Yeah, I got it here. Where is it? Federalist. Come on, give me the Federalist. There it is. I got it. Okay, I'll bring it up for you. All right. Yeah. This is the one, right? Jack Smith Spied. That one?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
That was the one I wrote, but there was another one I sent you that was written by Matt Kittle.
Okay. I'll bring it up.
Anyway, if you click on my name on that, any one of the articles that I've written, it'll take you to my author page.
Okay, cool. We'll do that.
And one of the articles that I wrote recently is about why nobody ever seems, and I've got articles on my X as well. But one of them that I've done 2 or 3 articles on, either in the Federalist or on X, talks about the problems that we have with holding people accountable here in Georgia.
Right.
And here's what it boils down to.
Tell me what you want. Which one of yours you want me to pull up?
Why election crimes are rarely prosecuted in Georgia.
There you go. Right. So go ahead, continue, and then we can get to this.
That one directly addresses this question. Because here's what the deal is. If you imagine a pyramid, okay, at the bottom of that pyramid, you have tons of election law violations that happen. As far as I can tell, there is nobody in government out there deliberately looking for those violations, other than citizen activists like us, okay? Right. And so most of those go unnoticed and unreported, okay? Of the ones who do get reported to a county board of elections or to the state election board, okay, they may or may not actually be heard by the state election board because they're investigated, or at least up until recently, they've been investigated by the Secretary of State's investigators. So unless the Secretary of State wanted that case to be heard by the state election board, they would just sit on it. And they're still sitting on a bunch from 2020.
Wow.
And so then when it finally goes to the state election board, now we've only had genuine election integrity people on the state election board for a couple of years now. And that's a whole complicated rabbit hole. But, you know, the state election board was created in 1964. We've only actually had really genuinely election integrity minded people on it recently. And so even when they hear cases, they've got 2 choices when they see criminal activity.
Right.
They can refer the case to a county DA or it goes to our attorney general. Now, let's just assume you're talking about election crime in Fulton County. Well, what do you think is going to happen when that case goes to Fannie Willis?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So it's likely to go to the attorney general. Did I cut out again?
No, you're here. I can hear you.
Sorry, that's so frustrating. Okay.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
All right. So,
yeah, Fannie Willis would throw that in the garbage.
Oh, yeah. So it goes to the AG. Well, the AG has taken the position that he doesn't have the jurisdiction to prosecute election crime, or some. He says he has jurisdiction to prosecute some of it, but not all of it. But as a practical matter, I was unable to find even a single case that has been referred to him that was criminally prosecuted. Now, If you talk to AI about this subject, it'll say, oh, well, some of them have gotten fines. Okay, those are civil penalties.
Right,
okay?
Right. They're not criminal.
So the only election cases that I could find that have actually been prosecuted in Georgia in the last decade were a small handful of pretty serious cases that were handled by local DAs. But our attorney general, as far as I can tell, has never prosecuted a single election crime since he was elected a decade ago.
Wow.
And so,
isn't it just crazy?
well,
That nobody in power wants to tackle it.
Well, I interviewed a candidate, Brian Strickland, for that article, and he said if he's elected, he will try to get concurrent original jurisdiction over election crime. But I want you all to understand, okay? Our attorney general went to the Georgia legislature and said, hey, we have a gang problem. I want to create a gang unit. So I want you to give me concurrent original jurisdiction over gang crime. And he got it. So if he had wanted to investigate election crime and believed honestly that he didn't have the jurisdiction he needed to do it,
right,
then he could have just gone back to the General Assembly and said, hey, please give me concurrent original jurisdiction over election crime, just like you did with gangs or human trafficking. And he would have gotten it.
Yep.
So it's political theater is what it is. We go through the motions of trying to enforce election integrity, but as a practical matter, if you think about it, these elected officials, they don't want election crime being acknowledged on their watch because then they have to explain why they've allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
It's just a mess.
It is a mess. And I mean, the entire thing is rigged for those who want to cheat to get away with it.
Well, I mean, if the worst you're going to get is, a glorified parking ticket or an expensive parking ticket, I mean, people aren't afraid.
That's right.
Like Fulton County, oh my God, what a cesspool! I mean,
one of the worse than Philly, I think. And Philly's bad.
If you watch the Georgia State Election Board meetings, and they're all public, they have a YouTube channel. Okay,
right? Yeah.
But if you watch them, every time they hold a meeting where they hear cases, it's Fulton after Fulton after Fulton after Fulton after Fulton, and it's all these things. And they're like, oh, well, it was an accident. Oh, it was a clerical error. Oh, we didn't mean it. Or, we won't let it happen again. We promise, and I mean, I'm talking about years of this. So
yeah,
we have candidates now that are out there saying, okay, it's time to invoke. I can't remember if it was SB 202 or 189, but I think it was SB 202, gave the state election board a set of procedures where they can actually take over, a county's administration of elections. They can actually do that.
Can they? All right.
They have not moved to do that yet. But if the investigation in Fulton County ends up like I think it's going to wind up, I'm not going to be surprised to see that happen at all. And the Democrats are saying, oh, well, the Republicans are trying to take it over so they can flip the county red. Okay. Well, that's almost like an admission.
Yeah.
I mean, the administration of the elections should not change the character of the county one iota.
Right.
There should be zero difference.
That tells you why it's blue.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically saying, as long as
they're not bright people
running Fulton County, we believe it'll be blue. But if
they're not very bright, are they? I mean, think about this. They're saying, like, think about with the SAVE Act, right? And you have Chuck Schumer out there, and he won't change his rhetoric. He's saying that it's Jim Crow 2.0, but he doesn't point out that his party was behind Jim Crow. Right? They created it, they enforced it, they thrived on it. And so, I mean, holy crap. So if you're against the SAVE Act, you want to cheat. It's as simple as that. It's just now. Can you tell us anything about what's going on with Fani Willis now?
Well, we passed a law. I think it was an SB 189 that basically allowed the Fulton 19 to go after their attorney fees and all this other kind of stuff. That's on the table. There have been a number of the Fulton 19 that have filed, maybe even all of them by now, to recover their costs. And a lot of these people have been severely damaged. I'm sitting here talking about how I never got a subpoena from Fani Willis. I mean, part of me says, thank God I didn't. But back when that was going on, there was a part of me that really wanted to just contact her and say, hey, why haven't I gotten a subpoena? I got stuff to share, you know?
Right.
But I'm kind of thankful because if I had, some of you guys know that just the stress from fighting with Mark Elias for 3 years gave me heart failure. I literally came close to dying.
Hey guys, Mark Elias is the scumbag lawyer that when the Democrats want to steal an election, he's their go-to guy. He was bragging, guys, he was bragging in 2020 of how he took his legal team into the battleground states and got their Supreme Courts, which were mostly Democrat controlled, like in PA he did it. And they changed election law through Mark Elias's team. They got them to change election law to the election law said for mail-in ballots. It was called Act 72, I think it was called, or 77. And it said that the deadline for accepting mail-in ballots was 8 p.m. election night. And Elias got our Democrat-controlled Supreme Court to extend it by 3 days. Now, why? Because they needed to know how many votes they had to get to beat Trump.
Rich, if you go to his X account, even to this day, you will see recent posts from him about how many lawsuits he has in how many states.
Yeah, that's
Mark
what I was getting to. Yeah.
Mark Elias is the Brigadier General of Democrat lawfare.
Right. And he has a channel on YouTube and Rumble where he talks like he's doing yeoman's work. You know, I mean, my God, he literally went out there in 2024 and he was bragging about what he did in 2020. He said, we've got, like when I watched it, he said, we've got 14 cases in states right now, cases in 14 states right now. We're going to do it again. And I'm sitting there going, how does nobody chime in about that? How does nobody in government with an ounce of integrity, but then I just answered my question. How does no one step forward and go, wait a minute, Mark Elias just admitted that they're going to do again what they did in 2020. That's frightening that he's able to do that and no repercussions.
I'm really looking forward to this investigation into Jack Frost.
Yeah, you're right, man.
If people start paying a penalty for all of this lawfare, maybe it'll help put a curb to it.
Yeah. God, Jade, what were you saying?
Yeah, I just didn't he just admit to election interference?
I believe so. But see, the way they do it, they always have a slimeball way of doing it. He'll say, well, we fought against bad laws that were going to suppress the vote in black neighborhoods or something like that. You know, and Republicans usually go, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not a racist, you know, and they just give in. Well, they never met Trump. So what they, because Trump goes, shut up. Yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't let that bother him, right? Because they're going to call him that anyway. Yeah, right. Trump, he knows who he is. He knows he's not.
Trump and most of MAGA now goes, okay, well, what the hell? You're going to call me a racist anyway. What do I care?
Exactly.
Yeah, I was just reading earlier today that there's now an effort in Congress to try to combat some of this lawfare that's aimed at conservative attorneys, because for a while there during the Biden administration, it got really, really scary to be a conservative attorney. And if you look at Harmeet Dillon's posts on X, not long ago, she was posting almost daily, basically advertisements looking for conservative attorneys for the DOJ. Some of you may not know this, but right after Trump was reelected in 2024, there were attorneys in the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ who were holding crying circles and then quitting. And so the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ was decimated right after Trump took office again. That's why it took, quite a few months for them to gear up and start actually doing things on these elections issues, because they've been short-staffed. And I think, as far as I'm aware, still are.
That's crazy, man.
But part of it is because if you're a conservative attorney and you stick your head up out of the foxhole, somebody's going to take a shot at you.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true, man.
We got any more questions?
No, I don't know. Let me see. Lou said again, he said, illegal court action performed by the Pennsylvania court in the middle of the night. Pennsylvania law states that only the state legislator can do. Yeah, that's actually in Article 1, Section 4. It says that a state legislature has the right to do election laws.
I think that is probably another national strategy, and I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
when we were holding the Blue Ribbon Study Committee hearings here in Georgia, the former chairman of the Georgia Democrat Party, David Worley, he served on the state election board for years and years and years. I think it was from 2004 through 2021 off the top of my head. I may be off a year or two, but that's what my memory informs me. The guy was on the fundraising committee for Biden Harris, and you know, he'd been active in the Democrat Party for all those years, and there's nothing wrong with that because he was the appointee of the Democrat Party. But now they're making issues out of Republicans who just attended a Trump rally, you know. But he stood up in the Blue Ribbon Committee hearing twice and made the argument that we should just abolish the state election board that he sat on for years. And he made the same argument that election laws should be done by the General Assembly, and we should do away with all these state election board rules and the state election board itself, and all of this kind of stuff. They basically just want to do away with it. So if we did that, then the only way that violations of election law would be prosecuted is if people went directly to the Attorney General, who claims he doesn't have jurisdiction, or to the county DAs. And the problem there, most county DAs don't have any real experience with elections. Right. And a lot of them are overloaded with street crime, or they have political connections to the people who are involved. Right. And so it's a horrible idea, but it goes back to their whole thing of, you know, what the Democrats want is they want the Wild West going on. They want voting to just be like the Wild West. Just willy-nilly.
Why they want illegals in here. It's why a lot of problems they have that they create for us. It's crazy, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. And what else was going on? There was something else going on in Fulton. I can't remember. Oh, yeah. Why? So why do you think Tulsi went there?
That's kind of a mystery, because if you think about it, she went there and there was talk that she was going to give an interview, and she didn't. Right. And she was photographed, but if you looked at the photographs from her visit to Georgia, right, she was kind of peeking out here and there, and people were snapping photos. So she basically was on the record. Okay, I was here in Georgia. I was there. And there's evidence that I was there, you know, blah, blah, blah. But she didn't have much to say, and so on and so forth. So there's been a lot of speculation that she may have been there because there's some sort of a national security issue that's involved here, perhaps some kind of foreign influence or, you know, something like that. There's been a lot of speculation on that. Right. I'll put it this way. I would not be at all shocked to find out that that's why she was there, or to learn that that was actually the case.
Or to let the Democrats know that the Trump administration isn't screwing around.
No, they're not. And that's why a lot of them are freaking out. Yeah. I mean, they don't want the accountability. They don't want all of this loosey-goosey stuff tightened up. They don't want the SAVE Act, which is extremely telling. Oh, and on that note, Florida is on the verge of passing sort of its own version of the SAVE Act. And I guess doing something's better than nothing. But I've talked to some policy wonks down in Florida that tell me that even that, to an extent, is political theater and does not do or would not do some of the things that were going on in the actual SAVE Act. So we actually still need the SAVE Act.
Absolutely.
We really need to be signing petitions, posting online. We need to do whatever we can do.
Everybody has to push for this. And what is your take on why?
And we need to put pressure on Thune.
Can you hear me?
He's too wishy-washy on it. I don't know what he's going to do.
I don't think he can hear you.
Yeah. But Mark, can you hear me?
You know, and a lot of people don't realize this.
That's all right.
Oh, I think I'm.
Yeah, you lost it. Your volume went out again.
Dadgummit. Can you hear me
now?
There? Yeah.
Well, we can hear you all the time. If you couldn't hear me, I had a question for you. Why do you think John Thune is not pushing the SAVE Act? Like, what is his point?
I really don't know, unless he just doesn't want to spend the political capital on it. A lot of people don't realize
But it's needed.
A lot of people don't realize this, but what the SAVE Act really does is reform the 1993 NVRA.
Yes.
Now,
It does.
these issues I've been talking to you about, these residency issues, all right, they point to the need also to reform the NVRA. And see, I've been saying for years that if we ever try to reform the NVRA, that's a hill the Democrats will die on.
Yep.
And that is exactly
help them
what's
cheat
happening here.
so many ways.
They're fighting the SAVE Act with their dying breath, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And they will be, you know. They'll do anything to try to prevent any kind of reform of the NVRA because it gives them that loosey-goosey stuff that they want.
Yep. Like, for example, everybody recently has been pointing to Bill Clinton during his State of the Union. I think it was 93 or 9. I think it was 93, where he came out and he gave a really good speech against illegal immigration and said how he's doing this, he's boosting this. But at the same time, the son of a bitch signed the NVRA, which, number one, motor voter law, because they knew that eventually Democrats in blue cities, blue jurisdictions, were going to allow illegals to have driver's licenses, which means that the minute they get a driver's license, now they're registered to vote. That's number one. Number two, doesn't the NVRA, doesn't it force all 50 secretaries of state to keep certain people on ballots before purging them for so many years?
Yeah, if you go back to that chart, if you go back to that chart that I gave you and look at all those address changes, okay? In 2020, we had 588,000. About 267,000 or so of those were people who told the post office they were moving to a whole different state.
Right.
Okay. And then there were about 314,000 or so that said they were moving within the state. Well, if they move within the same county, that's not really a problem. They can just update the records and keep voting. But if they change jurisdictions, you know, that is an issue. And so what happens is these folks get put on inactive status, and they have to stay on inactive status for 2 more federal election cycles. So even once problems are picked up, they can stay on the voter rolls literally for years.
What's up, Bass?
I'm back.
Oh, okay. We heard you the whole time.
They can stay on the voter rolls for years, and then, like you were talking about earlier, bad actors can figure out who's moved away, who's left the state, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then potentially vote on those records if they, you know, request an absentee ballot and manage to get it. And then the other thing is, you know, we changed state law to go away from signature matching. Now we're using the last 4 of the social security number, things like that. And the problem I have with that, we had a major data breach here in Georgia. I think it was around 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I actually got a copy of that data. And so at that point, I had in my possession the driver's license and social security numbers and full dates of birth for basically every voter in Georgia. And I was not the only person to receive that data. There were a number of other Democrat, Republican, Libertarian groups that got access to the data. Well, we were told that the state recovered all of those CDs and that the breach was contained. There have been reports since then that wasn't necessarily the case. So what worries me, and you guys know this, you can go on the dark web and you can buy that data on people.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's my belief that the absentee ballot data process can still be rigged. Now, because of SB 202, the amount of absentee by mail voting has dropped drastically in Georgia, especially, you know, after the pandemic ended. The numbers have returned to somewhat normal. They're a lot lower now than they were, but it was completely out of control in 2020.
Well, because they mailed out millions of ballots. They didn't even know who they were mailing them to. Yeah.
Well, 6.9 million absentee ballot applications, and they went out pre-filled. So, yeah, lots of issues remain from 2020, and part of the reason that they still remain is that a lot of those problems still haven't been adequately fixed.
Oh, yeah. Linda says, would you consider reaching out to Nick Shirley to get your great work more attention? That would be a boost.
Well, I tell you the issue that I have here, guys, and this is really bizarre. Okay. If Nick Shirley or David Kate or Jason Frazier, any of these people go out and they do videos on residency violations, like people registering at commercial mail receiving agencies and things like that, they can do that. They can say, okay, this is an invalid address where voters are registered.
Right.
Here's the problem I have. With the evidence that I've got here, if I publish actual data that proves my claims, the only way I can prove them is by showing you guys the actual data. Okay. If I show you the actual data, according to the DOJ, I have published a list of voters who may have committed a crime, which they consider to be voter intimidation under Section
the Voting Rights
11B
Act
of the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, yeah. That's crazy. Well, Fair Fight went after you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Fair Fight went after you, didn't they? Didn't Fair Fight go after you, claiming that you violated them?
I was smart enough that I never actually published any of that data.
Right.
So they couldn't show where I had, actually intimidated anybody. And we won that case, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we beat Mark Elias.
Yeah.
He could not show that we actually intimidated anybody because we didn't. We never had any contact with any of those voters. We went to the county
they
board
did it
of
to send a message to others. If you try to look into this is why Fannie Willis and all the others arrested their lawyers, Trump's lawyers. Oh, if you're a lawyer and you want to represent Donald Trump, this is what's going to happen to you. This is what communists do.
Well, it's like Molly Hemingway always says, the process is the punishment.
Right. Yeah, exactly correct.
You could certainly, Mark, point somebody like Nick Shirley in the right direction and have him go and look up voter rolls and addresses himself.
Well, I mean, I can present this summary data for sure. But the problem is there's going to be somebody on the left who says, oh, well, show us the actual underlying data, prove your claim. Well, if I publish that data, then I can get in a lot of trouble. Right. But if they go to the state and say, I want a copy of Mark Davis's state election board complaint, then they can get a copy of it from the state, but they'll never actually do that because it's just too much work. It's easier to just go on the attack, but they actually can get the underlying data. It's just that they need to get it through an open records request rather than from me, because then I'm insulated. Right now, if I go online and I just publish all this data for anybody who wants to see it, then Mark Elias will sue me again.
Yeah. As I said, maybe you can point Nick Shirley or someone like that in the right direction.
Well, I've actually published exactly how to do this analysis.
Yeah,
it's on my X account in a recent article that I wrote. Yeah. If anybody wants to do it in your state, if any of you are analysts out there and you want to do this, I will show you exactly how to do it. Yep. This can be replicated in any state as long as you have access to the data. As far as I'm aware, I've talked to other people in other states. They should be able to do the same work. And ERIC, I don't know if you guys are familiar with ERIC, but it's the Electronic Registration Information Center that half the states rely on to help them clean their voter rolls. They could totally be doing this analysis, but they're not.
Why not?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of analysis. The same caste certification and NCOA data that ERIC deals with for 25 states can be used to identify the commercial mail receiving agencies, voters registered at commercial addresses. They can be used, it can be used to identify these residency issues. I mean, ERIC could be doing so much more for election integrity than they're actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of problems that conservatives have with ERIC. Some of them are worse than others, but in my view, the lack of things that they're looking for is a problem. And the other big problem is, again, and I said this earlier, Who in our government, state or federal, is actually out there looking for violations? Who? Who is it?
I don't
Somebody
know.
tell me.
And you know why I think it is, Mark? My belief is that they always think it's like the lawyers. You know, like in most states, when you have the bar and a lawyer gets referred to the bar and he has to go before them, they got to spank them, right? Well, there's lawyers that are sitting on the panel because by law, you get called to do it. You got to do it for a term and then you get out of it and the next guy's going. Well, they know that if they hammer this guy for something, that guy could literally be, whether he's found guilty of something or a violation, he could be on the board in like next year and he'll remember. So it's the same thing.
That's one of the things that Congress is trying to reform right now, is to stop some of that lawfare that's happening against some of the conservative attorneys. It's bad.
Yeah, it's amazing, man, what they're doing. And see, conservatives, I've never heard of a case where a conservative will do that to a liberal, to a Democrat. I don't think that animal exists. I mean, maybe, but I've never heard of it happening.
Well, going back to what you said earlier, I am willing to talk about election integrity issues with anybody. I mean,
right.
Democrat or Republican, anybody that's interested in these issues, I am more than willing to talk with them about these issues. I've gotten some criticism because of that. I did an elections case for a Democrat in 2024. It was the only case that we've ever won without even a hearing.
Wow.
We basically filed a complaint and we said, hey, you put a whole apartment complex in the wrong district here. And that case was won with two polygons. One was the district polygon. The other was the property tax parcel polygon on the piece of property where the apartment complex was located.
Right.
And once they looked at the two, they realized they couldn't fight the case. They threw in the towel and we settled it. The judge signed a consent order and it was over. It was the only case that ever went that way, and it was for a Democrat. And I deliberately did a case for a Democrat because, to me, election integrity issues are more important than my partisanship. And I'm a very partisan Republican. I'm a MAGA Republican. I make no apologies about that.
Yeah.
But election integrity, if we're going to say that it means more to us than our partisanship, we have to mean it.
Yeah, you have to act it. You have to
act accordingly.
Yeah. Well, nobody's ever questioned your integrity. In fact, your integrity, Mark, is why Fani Willis said nobody's going to call Mark Davis.
Well, if you imagine that situation, let's just imagine that I walked into Fani Willis's grand jury hearing and I presented this data and the underlying evidence, because in that context, I could do it with immunity. Okay. Mm-hmm. I couldn't be charged for voter intimidation. Okay. Yeah. But if I had walked into that grand jury hearing and explained all these issues, me or any number of other analysts, if we had been able to go in there and talk to her grand jury and say, these are the issues that we see in the election, blah, 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 she might have not even ever gotten an indictment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Integrity. He says integrity is a double-edged sword. Yep.
Yeah. It'll make you a target.
Yeah, it absolutely will. It'll make you a target. Christ, man, all the crap that's going on.
But yeah, a few weeks before the hearing in Fair Fight versus True the Vote, after the Biden DOJ joined that case, we had a Obama-appointed judge, federal court judge, who I thought was hostile to us, to our case.
Right.
I was wrong about that. He wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But then when the Biden DOJ joined that case in 2022, I was very, very threatened because that case could have destroyed me financially. Yep. And the Biden DOJ could have come at me criminally. Yep. So the stress going into that hearing, Derek Somerville, the former FBI agent I told you guys about, me and him were kind of joined at the hip. We were in the foxhole together because, we had our challenges and True the Vote had theirs, and we were all in the same case, but it was really two different issues. And so Derek and I were putting in ridiculous amounts of time and effort to help the attorneys get prepared and produce exhibits and lines of questions and all of this kind of stuff. And Derek, being a former FBI agent, was a trained FBI interrogator. And so we went through systematically and examined every major piece of evidence and all the depositions and everything. And we put on a hell of a case. Some of their witnesses in that case wound up in tears on the witness stand when they were exposed as liars and things like that. But it was an epic battle, and it took so much out of me that the stress literally caused heart failure. One chamber of my heart was only pumping at like 20-25% when I went in the hospital. I literally could have died from it. I'm better now, but I'm never going to recover. I'm going to have heart failure for the rest of my life, and my life will end up being cut short because of it, probably.
Wow.
It just is what it is. I don't regret taking a stand. I would do it again, but you guys are right. I mean, when you stick your head up out of the foxhole, you're going to get shot at. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Thanks for being here. See you, brother. Yeah, I remember when you went through that. I remember your rehab too. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it took
you actually had a miraculous rehab, by the way. Yeah, you had a miraculous rehab. They were telling him he wouldn't be able to walk again. Not that his legs wouldn't work, but that he wouldn't be able to walk any distance. He's fine.
I could manage to walk to the bathroom with a walker, and that was about it for several months. And then I finally started to be able to do laps around the island in my kitchen. And then I would get out with a walker, and I looked ridiculous, but I was out here in the neighborhood with a walker.
Yeah.
You know, and I finally got, now
he called me one day and said, Rich, I made it to the mailbox. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you have no idea. I remember all that, man. You went through hell.
I live on a hill, and just being able to get my trash can down to the curb for the trash guy was a major victory.
I know. I remember that, dude. I remember you went through hell.
It was bad. It was.
I remember that.
You're a good friend. You hung in there with me the whole time, man. You've always been a good friend.
Yeah, we've been friends for what? It's going on like 20 years now.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah, we used to tag team the Lib Nuts on Facebook and in other sites, political sites, forums.
Did you make them cry?
Oh, sometimes we did.
Probably.
Yeah, sometimes we did. Actually, sometimes we made them
I can hang for a little while longer, and then I kind of got to take my wife to dinner. But if anybody else has any questions,
anybody got any questions? Thank you for the questions you've already asked. I appreciate it.
Yeah, nothing better than liberal tears.
Yeah, I know. It says it right on my mug. Enjoying a hot cup of liberal tears, all thanks to Donald J. Trump.
Liberal tears are just so tasty.
Yeah, I know. A little salty, but Hey, what's up, Jeff? Good to see you, man.
I think I told you, Rich, one time I said something to that effect, and I can't remember, in some sort of a chat somewhere, and somebody said something about me being so terrible because I was taking delight in someone else's discomfort. And I said, no, just because liberals are for like everything bad and evil. So whatever they, cry about is probably good.
It's probably a good thing. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, Mark, that we left out? Because you covered a lot. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I covered a lot. I probably didn't do justice to very much of it, but I covered.
No, dude. Trust me. You were pretty good. You were good.
I can throw something out there for you, Mark.
Go ahead.
My theory has always been that although there is no question in my ever-loving military mind that there were significant shenanigans in 2020, it was also the best gift that the Democrats ever gave conservatives. Because if Trump would have won in 2020, he would have been stuck with the same old guard. I mean, Mike Pence would still be in there.
Yeah.
Well, in more ways than one. So here's the thing about 2020. Okay. I want to put it in context. Okay. I was working with voter data ever since 1986. So 40 years I've been working with voter data. Okay. And then in 1993, we had the NVRA that passed. It rolled out here in Georgia in 95, and I started working with NVRA data, data that was mandated by the NVRA in 1996. Okay. Right. So I almost immediately started seeing issues in the voter rolls and started raising it with our elected officials and everything. And and I went before the state election board to talk about these issues in 2002. Okay. So for years and years, I was just that nerd over there who would not shut up about our dirty voter rolls and stuff. Okay. And, you know, I'd kind of get a pat on the head. Oh, thanks for your concern, you know, all this kind of stuff. But 2020 made the country wake up and realize that our voting system has a lot of problems. And I don't care what state you're talking about.
And it was abused.
If you look closely enough at the voter rolls, at the voting equipment, at the procedures, at the law, the regulations, if you look at voting in general, everywhere you look, you're going to find some kind of rabbit hole to go down. You know, and what's really exciting and interesting to me about the election integrity movement is that the people who take an active role in it, they all find where they belong. That's how I know it's a God thing, because some people will come in and they do videos. Some people like you hold podcasts. Some people are policy wonks. Some people file open records requests and examine, you know, the data. And, you know, some are analysts like me. You know, there's just all these folks that get involved with it and they find where their spot is. And, you know, there's some people who just suit up and show up. They'll show up at legislative hearings. They'll show up at state election board meetings. You know, they just suit up and show up and be heard, you know, suit up, show up, speak up, you know, and, you know, even people who just do that make a huge contribution, because then our elected officials know we're paying attention.
Right.
But here's the thing. In my mind, 2016 let us know that we weren't alone, because I think a lot of conservatives were feeling very isolated.
Yep.
And 2016, it was all of a sudden, oh my. Then 2020 came around, and I know you're an elections security guy, but more to the big picture, the gestalt. Because if Trump would have won, I think that would have ended up being a disaster, because he would have been compromised all the way. But instead, he got 4 years to hang back, to plan and plot. And you know how many lawyers he spoke with, how long I mean, what he did on his first day, you know, those things were already written.
You're right. And he thought for 4 years who he was going to pick for his cabinet.
Well, so my question is more on not the election itself, but on the result, in terms of him coming back in 2024 with, as you say, Rich, his cabinet he already had in his mind who he wanted in his cabinet.
The best.
And it didn't include Mike Pence, you'll notice.
Right.
Well,
So-
and here's the other aspect. It takes a lot of time and effort to really understand election integrity issues. So Trump, having been the victim of election integrity issues, or at least perceiving himself that way, took a lot of time and talked to a lot of people, including a lot of experts, about a lot of issues. And he learned a huge amount of information during those 4 years that he brought back with him into office.
Right.
So in that regard, I know you're talking generally about the administration, and I agree with you 100%. But just from an election integrity perspective, he now knows where the major issues are, and he's trying to fix them. And he brought in people who are trying to help him.
Yeah, that's true too. As I said, I'm thinking more in terms of the administration in general, because, you know, the best thing the Democrats could have done would be let him win in 2020, have all these people around him. I mean, for God's sake,
He would have never gotten anything done.
His vice president was against him. His secretary of state,
The defense secretary.
The chief of defense staff was against him.
Right.
So, I mean, the chief of defense staff was calling China, you know, give me a break.
Mark Milley.
Well, to your point, even today, okay, a lot of people don't know this, but when the orders came down for the FBI to get involved here in Georgia. The guy that was in charge here in Georgia was slow walking it. I've heard talk that he actually.
He's talking U.S. attorney?
People. No, not the U.S. attorney. The head of the FBI here in Atlanta got fired. And I'm told it was because he was slow walking the case. Now, as far as the published reports, I mean, the reasons may be different from what my understanding is, but there's talk down here that he actually may have tipped off some of the people that were targets of the investigation. How true that is, I don't know, but that's what's the word on the street here in Georgia was. Wow. So to your point, even though, we had that 4-year period and now we're in a whole new Trump, administration, there's still people that aren't really cooperative or on board with that agenda.
Right.
And they're still being weeded out.
Yeah, he's still weeding them out, but he's able to weed them out at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so, it was that the swamp was just so thick with alligators.
And they're unapologetic about it. That's what I like. Let me say this. Another thing that I think, a third angle, if I will, and I'll go there. I think that because of what happened in 2020, and because they then saw, because look, you got to be a real record class of stupid to not realize that something really bad happened in 2020, okay? But then to have the lawfare thrown at him, a lot of Black Americans, Black voters and Hispanic voters said to themselves, like I heard a lot of Black voters online saying, you know what? We understand lawfare. Lawfare was created to go against Black people, right? And so they understood what the Democrats thought that they had every demographic locked in. But when people started seeing what they were doing to this man, and then he got shot, and people heard that, it might have been people on the inside because of the Secret Service detail that was pulled away from all that stuff that happens. And then they have another case where somebody wanted to shoot him, but luckily we got him beforehand. When they saw all that, they were like, you know what? It finally, I think, broke the spell. That Trump is a racist. He's a rapist, all the nonsense they threw. And they thought to themselves, you know what? I'm going to look at this in a different light because I remember my paycheck was better after 2016 and it went down the shitter when Joe Biden assumed the office, right? And so they're thinking, okay, so why do they want this guy so badly that they're throwing lawfare at every single level, local, state, and federal? And I mean, the Juan Merchan case where Alvin Bragg, where that judge allowed a state prosecutor to convert 34 or 50, I think it was 34 state misdemeanor documents charges into 34 federal felony election violations, and which a state prosecutor can't work in the federal system. And people knew all this because they listened. They finally started paying attention. Right before it was like, oh yeah, Orange Man bad, I don't need to hear anymore. But then they started paying attention, and when they got away with all this shit against Trump, people started saying, you know what? I think I want the money, and now I don't care that my Democrats keep telling me he's a racist person.
Well, to your point, okay, something remarkable happened here in Georgia during that time period, especially when the whole deal with Fani Willis was going on. I was seeing, because I watch a lot of YouTube, and I was seeing Atlanta Black channels that were focused on the whole Fani Willis thing and election integrity issues in general. And I'm still seeing them pop up. And so I'm starting to see all of these African-American social media personalities that are keyed in on this stuff. One of them I want to mention, if you guys are on TikTok, look up Miss Nika, Nika. She is hysterical. And there's also other channels. There's a Black attorney named oh, dadgummit.
Oh yeah, Miss Nika.
I can't think of her, but there's
I've seen her. You're right. She is hilarious.
And what I'm saying is that some of these folks are not necessarily Republican, but they're not necessarily Democrat either. And some of these channels are just phenomenal. There's Inside the Law with Phil Holloway. He's a white guy, but there's another black attorney whose name escapes me at the moment, who just spent hours and hours and hours and hours, days and days and days of coverage on the Fannie Willis stuff. And it got to the point where I kind of tuned out the national media on the issue and started watching his channel, because he was putting stuff on the table and he knew some of these people.
Yeah, I saw that too. I watched that too. And there was another guy that was a lawyer that was really going on it, but I know who you're talking about. My brother, Jimmy from Philly, he turned me on to him, which I'm wondering, where the hell is he?
But there's something going on with the black vote in Georgia where what I call the Buppy crowd, the black urban professionals, I used to call them that in the early 2000s when a lot of them were voting for Republicans. But they've kind of resurfaced, and they're definitely not your garden variety Republicans, but they're not really wedded to the Democrat Party anymore either. They're becoming a lot more independently minded, and some of those channels are really worth watching. But Miss Nika on TikTok is hysterical. She's always got her popcorn, and she's always telling you the latest crap that's going on.
I watched one of hers, and I was laughing. She was eating her popcorn, and she was talking about how what the hell was it? It was really funny too. What the hell was it? It was Democrats with immigration. She was talking about it, and she just she layers her routine. She'll say something, and she'll go, but it gets even worse, and she'll just go down that rabbit hole, and it's funny, and it's all in 60 seconds.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. Awesome. Yeah, she is funny.
And then I don't know if anybody heard Stephen A. Smith recently.
Yeah.
He was on an interview, and I forget who was interviewing. He said he won't vote for Kamala, and he won't vote for Newsom. You know who he said he would vote for?
Who's that?
Marco
Rubio. Oh, okay.
He said, "Yep." He said, "I would vote for Marco."
I think Marco will be on the ticket. I still think it's going to be JD, and I think Marco will. Yeah, I think he will. Yeah, I'm going to look for it, and I'll put it there.
Yeah, you guys should show a clip of Miss Nika. She's hysterical, but I probably need to go.
All right, man.
I promised my wife dinner.
Hey, you spent a lot of time here.
But before I do, I just want to thank the folks in the comments. I appreciate your kind words, and I appreciate your interest, and I appreciate you listening to me ramble about this boring stuff for 2 hours now.
No, it's not boring, dude. Do me a favor, send me the link. I know you already sent it to me, but send it again. Where your X link, where you are explaining to people how to do it. I'll put it in the description.
Here, I'll grab that for you right now.
Awesome. Also, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you on social media.
I'm Mark Davis, GOP on X.
I don't have an X account. Never have.
That article right quick.
Well, then you can't see his stuff.
I have this allergy to social media.
Yeah, she does. Let's see.
Yeah, all this Facebook and WhatsApp and X and God knows there's half a dozen others. Never once been on any of them.
Not sure how to send you a link here.
You just send it in the chat. We have a private chat here where you sent it earlier. Yeah, you sent stuff earlier.
Yeah, just click in the chat box.
Yeah, chat box. It'll put it right in. Only I see it. Well,
I see it too.
Yeah, I know. We'll all see it. Let me see.
Yeah, it says it's having troubles with my YouTube account. I'm trying to send you a link. Well, okay, just do this. Go to go to X and look for Mark Davis GOP.
Right, I got you.
And then click on articles, and you can read all the articles. I've done a bunch of them on X, and I've done a bunch of them on the Federalist.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
I'm sure Rich can put that in the description afterwards.
Yeah, I'll put that in there too. Let me see articles. There they are. Yeah, cool. All right. So one of them you wrote it as an article where you're going to tell people how to do it.
Yeah, you'll see that same residency chart that you have on the screen here.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
It's one of the recent ones that I did.
Yeah,
In fact,
I
I
will
think
look
it
for
is
that.
the most recent. Yeah, it is the most recent one.
Okay, let me go up top. Yeah, there it is. Oh, that's where you do. Okay, cool. I will put that. Absolutely. Yeah, I will absolutely put that in
But
there.
yeah, the actual instructions for how to do the analysis for anybody is out there. And if anybody wants help doing it, you do need some data processing skill, but it's not rocket science. It's a lot of work, but it's totally doable in other
No,
states.
what you need is a set of you know what.
Yeah.
That's what
All
you
right,
need.
it's in the description now, guys. It says Mark shows how to do the election integrity he's doing. Yeah,
Mark, you're a good man. You're doing
you're
the
a good
Lord's
man.
work.
Thank
Yeah,
y'all.
you
I
do.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
And
doing
thanks,
God's work,
everybody. I
man.
appreciate everybody that tuned in.
Thank you for your time, brother.
All right. Thank y'all.
All right, man. See you. Yeah, he's a good guy. I've known him years. Yeah, he and I, we used to, before we knew each other, we used to read each other's like attacks on the lib nuts, right? And yeah, really. And one day I like reached out to him and he wrote back and he goes, "Yeah, I was thinking, man, who the hell is this guy? He sounds just like me." Yeah, and we've been friends ever since. Yeah, I met him once. I flew down to Atlanta. We had dinner, believe it or not, in the subway, because in the Atlanta subway, if you guys know, they got like high-end stores, restaurants, all kinds of stuff. It's unbelievable. Unlike the Philly subway, which smells of urine.
All I can say is I consider myself an intelligent person and a pretty strong and motivated person.
Right.
He's got a bigger set than I could ever have. I could not
I'm
do
telling
what
you.
he did.
I told him a few times he better hire a food taster and some security, because he has gone out on a limb. All right. Thank you guys for being here for that. I'm going to start reading now.
Are we going to do some stories?
We're actually going to do some stories, but I was so glad that he spent 2 hours with us, which is very generous of his time because he's constantly working. Yeah. So let's go over what we're going to do. Let me see. I want to share it.
Well, that first story we just spent 2 hours on.
Yeah, that first story, Jack Smith spied on me, and I was never supposed to find out. Here we go. Exposed Ilhan Omar's ties to Sisters Minneapolis Health Clinic, Somali health company. It's all fraud. All right. Federal appeals court hands Trump a win, overrules judge who blocked deportations to third world countries. Here you go, Judge. We'll do this. We'll do this one first in honor of Mark. A judge allows Trump co-defendants to pursue millions in Fani Willis legal fees. This is really interesting. Fani Willis, the controversial district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, faced a significant setback this week when the judge denied her request to intervene in ongoing litigation regarding the reimbursement of legal fees stemming from her now dismissed election case against Don. In other words, she threw this lawfare case at him. It was so blatant. And then when she broke the law, she broke rules and laws by taking county money that was supposed to go towards hiring, prosecutors, the special prosecutor that she was sleeping with, who was not her husband, and all that crap. So they decided, no, we're throwing the case out. You're dismissed. And so now anybody that she called in the lawfare case, including Donald Trump, who had to spend money on legal fees and flights down there and hotels, restaurants to live, they get that money back. So the ruling by Judge Scott McAfee. Now, McAfee, believe it or not, I think is a conservative. I do. A lot of people don't, but some of the things he's done and some of the organizations he's donated to, I think he is. I don't think he's like us, right? But I think he's a conservative. So the ruling by Judge Scott McAfee, he's the one that did the case, by the way, Fannie's case, allows efforts to recover nearly $17 million in attorney fees and costs to proceed following the collapse of the high-profile prosecution last year, according to Zero Hedge. In August 2023, Trump and 18 others were indicted. That most of them, his lawyers, right? They went after they went after the lawyers. Can you believe it? Communists. That's what they do. They went after his lawyers. If you want to represent this guy, this is what's going to happen. So 18 others were indicted in Fulton County for allegedly conspiring to overturn then President Joe Biden's narrow election victory in Georgia. Well, First of all, we all know that was horseshit, right? However, the case was dismissed in November, prompting Trump and several co-defendants to seek reimbursement for the legal expenses incurred. So it says Willis's office attempted to intervene in the fee litigation to block these claims. However, Judge McAfee ruled, because he knew she was full of crap, Judge McAfee ruled that the district attorney's office had no legal standing to participate, as Willis had already been disqualified from the case. And you know what that means? That means that the county, not the state, the county is going to have to fork up those millions. And that's just, she's going to be a pariah. Who the hell's going to hire her? He noted that the state was represented by a temporary district attorney appointed after Willis's removal, indicating that the office's interests were already adequately represented in the proceedings. Nonetheless, McAfee did grant Fulton County itself permission to intervene in the case, as the county funds most of the district attorney's office and could ultimately be responsible for any reimbursement in the court. So I hope they get millions of dollars that makes so that Fulton County, the next time they have a DA in Fulton County, they'll think twice about going on lawfare against people.
I wish they could go after her personally.
Yeah, me too. Poland launches human trafficking investigation linked to Jeffrey Epstein. You guys are going to love this one.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Okay.
You're jumping down too far.
No, I gotta pull it up first. Right here.
I want to hear about the overruling of the blocked deportations.
Oh, we'll go to that first. We could do that. Where is it?
It's just above. It's just above the Fannie Willis case.
Okay, Federal Appeals Court. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. We can share this. This is just the news. It's John Solomon's gig. Misty Severi. Federal Appeals Court hands Trump win, overrules judge who blocked deportations to third countries. In other words, if a guy comes here from El Salvador, right? Well, that's a bad choice because he takes them all back, throws them right in jail. If somebody from, say, Guatemala, whatever, Colombia, and the guy's such a bad dude. He's such a bad dude, as Joe Biden would say, that they said, we don't want this guy back. Well, we could send him anywhere we want. We could send him to the middle of the Congo if we wanted to, right? And so, and that's actually lawful. That's in the code, right? And because we don't have to keep him, and if his home place won't have, and he doesn't get to choose, right? We send him where we want. So I hope they did it with nastiness in mind. Anyway, to be commensurate with what the scumbag did. So the ruling, which is still expected to be taken to the nation's highest court, comes just before Murphy's ruling was expected to take effect on Thursday. Good. The First Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals lifted a block Wednesday on a lower court rule. And see, this lower court, it's a friggin' district judge. Again, he does not have the jurisdiction to do a nationwide thing. He can't make a ruling nationwide. All right. So Trump administration had appealed U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy's ruling last week after he ruled in February that the Department of Homeland Security's deportation policy was unlawful and violates due process protections under the U.S. Constitution. The administration argued Murphy's order violated two previous Supreme Court rulings and created an unworkable scheme that threatened to derail regulations with other countries.
Negotiations.
What's that?
Negotiations.
What did I say?
Regulations.
Oh, did I? Derail negotiations. Thank you. With other countries, along with thousands of deportations. I got that one right.
There you go.
One of the rulings the administration argued it infringed on was the Supreme Court's order that narrowed the scope of specific injunctions and urged lower court judges to be more conservative in their issuance. The ruling, which is still expected to be taken to the nation's highest court, comes just before Murphy's ruling was expected to take effect. They repeated that in the article. Okay, that's fine. So now,
good.
Yeah.
Do we know whatever happened to Kilmar?
Yeah, I think he's back. Isn't he back?
I haven't heard.
Hold on.
Because his lawyers filed all kinds of papers that they couldn't send him back to El Salvador and like 14 other countries. And he ended up in not Eritrea, but in this third world African kingdom.
Yeah, let's see. It
and
says,
I don't remember if he came back. I haven't heard.
I love how they say in the AI on Google says Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I don't have to bring it up. It's real short. A Salvadoran man living in Maryland. He was the Maryland man, right?
Maryland
With his,
man, yeah.
Yeah, with his he's
No,
a
no, no,
Marylander.
no, the Maryland father.
Yeah, Maryland father. With his American wife and child was mistakenly deported to El Salvador on March 15, 2020. No, he wasn't. He had a final notice of deportation. He wasn't mistakenly. You know what it was? Some a-hole, a CNN person probably heard him say, oh, it's a mistake. It's all. No, it wasn't a mistake. He was deported because he was supposed to be deported. He had all the due process he wanted. But can you imagine the Democrats are the ones that flew? He's the guy that they flew down to El Salvador for and wanted to talk to him. And they were like, get out of here. Who the hell are you? No, I'm an American congressman. Oh, really? Guess where you're at, dumbass?
Yeah, there was a congressman who sat down to lunch with him. There's pictures.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
And they're drinking margaritas.
He's not important enough for me to remember. Yeah, send them to Gaza. They can meet Greta. Ugh, I wouldn't wish that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cruel and unusual if I ever heard it.
That really is. I'm telling you right now. But let's see. What else are we going to do? Let's do the Ilhan, because it's always nice to hear that Ilhan's in trouble, right?
Again, what are her measurements for an orange jumpsuit? That's all I want.
Yeah, really. So it says exposed Ilhan Omar's ties to sister's Minneapolis health clinic, Somali health company, and alleged brother husband. She's like, I don't know. Yeah, all right. So Representative Ilhan Omar's web of shady family ties goes even deeper than her alleged marriage to her brother, reportedly using her political offices. Sounds like Joe Biden and Hunter, reportedly using her political offices to secure millions of dollars for a Minneapolis health clinic operated by her sister, who was married to a top Somali government official. Really? Omar's elder sister, Sarah Noor, states on her LinkedIn profile, she has a LinkedIn profile, states on her LinkedIn profile that she was the CEO of People's Center Clinics and Services. I think they spelled it correctly this time. From July 2014 to April 2018. In January 2017, Omar began her 2-year term as a member of the Minnesota House of Representatives. People's Center is in the Minneapolis neighborhood of Cedar Riverside, nicknamed Little Mogadishu, for its high Somali immigrant population. Thank you, Barack Obama, 68,000 of them that he brought in and put there, many of whom do not speak English. Yeah, that's what we need, a bunch of people who just don't speak English, but they know how to rob the system. The 2017 capital budget approved by the state legislature included $2.2 million for the clinic, which operates as a nonprofit that has received $33 million in health and human services grants since 2002. While People's Center has an active contract pharmacy agreement for HHS's 340B drug pricing program with Deg's CarePoint Pharmacy. There you go. CarePoint Pharmacy. Signed by Noor in 2015, the pharmacy lost its license in 2017 and is listed as permanently closed on Google Maps. Omar boasted about getting the $2.2 million for the clinic that was being run by her sister at the time, celebrating the renovations it completed in 2022, along with Senator Amy Klobuchar, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob French Fry, and State Senator Omar Fattah, and other Democrats. The renovations include a walk-in clinic, a fitness center, a prayer room, and a call center with staffers fluent in East African languages of Somali, Aroma, whatever. I'm not even going to say. Minneapolis-based African community newspaper said. So, in other words, she did her share of scams herself. What a piece of crap.
Orange jumpsuit.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Commander? Good to see you.
Oh, Linda, you asked earlier about that Mayor Tiffany. Tiffany, I believe her last name is Hendricks. Last I heard, she moved to Texas, switched from Democrat to Republican, is running for a county commissioner seat, I believe. And she's all over about being MAGA now.
Nice.
Yeah, has nothing to do with the fact that she's being investigated for world-class fraud. And this week she was also found guilty of stiffing her previous landlord, and they have to pay like $10,000.
Oh, geez.
Just thought I'd throw that in there because I saw your comment in the chat earlier.
Let's see. What do we got here? How many did I write down? Were videos? There we go. Hang on. I'm looking.
That's another good question. Why isn't she in jail? Yeah, good question.
Who's that? Which
Linda
one?
just said.
Who's not in jail? I wasn't.
Tiffany Hendricks.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Shocking video out of New York City. Almost makes me rethink the whole First Amendment thing. This is Athena Thorne. This Kami Mamdani. Says, I don't care if you call me Islamophobic. I don't care if I am Islamophobic. Call me whatever you need to, but holy halal, Batman. What fresh hell is this? Here we go.
Want to make some of that?
Look at this.
Moment where you're asking yourself how you can reconnect.
And there he is.
Growing up with being taught that
I can't hear. Allahu Akbar. We're going to take over the city. Yeah, Jesus Christmas.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you can't hear it. They're all speaking Arabic.
Yeah. Separation of church and state, anyone? Yeah, the libs love to say separation of church and state, unless it's their favorite religion, right? Where are the lawsuits from the ACLU, the the American Criminal Liberties Union?
Yeah, there you go.
The ADL, which is a progressive shit rag. Astute observers on social media spotlighted one of the guests giving an ISIS salute during the Religion of Peace festivities. Look at this. Yeah, that's the ISIS salute. Can you believe this? So, mind you, Mamdani is doing this at a time when our country is literally at physical war with the exact same ideology in Iran. It boggles the mind. I will also take this opportunity to remind readers that this travesty took place literally 800 feet from ground zero in New York, right? The spot where Islamist fanatics murdered thousands of Americans on September 11th, 2021, right? I thought it was 2001. Anyway,
I was going to say that's not right.
Less than 25 years ago. As the great Ronald Reagan prophesied, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. That is true. Just a few days earlier, Mamdani made a big show of hosting anti-Semitic activist and, please God, soon-to-be deportee Mahmoud Khalil, and his wife and child at an iftar, whatever the iftar that is. But at least this one was at the mayor's private residence, Gracie Mansion. Look at this. This guy right there.
And it was 9/11/2001.
Right. Yeah, that's what I said. Quote, Khalil, a Syrian-born social activist and former master's student at Columbia University, was arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement at the beginning of last year. Now he faces the threat of deportation after the Trump administration accused him of committing fraud in his green card application. Oh, okay. Well, so did Ilhan Omar. Get rid of her. The U.S. administration, which claims that Khalil is a supporter of the Hamas organization, is using a rarely invoked legal provision, good for them, that allows for the deportation of non-citizen residents if their beliefs and activities could pose a threat to the core interests of U.S. foreign policy. You got to love the Trump administration for that. Anyone can see that Islam is a threat to the Western way of life. Contrast Muslim majority nations with those that answer to Jesus or Yahweh. One faith bends history toward totalitarianism and misery, the other two towards liberty and prosperity. Not to mention, as a woman, I am not all pleased. I love this one. I am not all pleased with what Islam does to my sex. One might say I'm downright Islamophobic. In the United States, Islam presents us constitutionalists with a dilemma. We zealously defend our First Amendment freedom of religion. We also understand that the Muslim religion is not compatible with our way of life. What is to be done? We don't need to read anymore. We know the position there, right?
Yeah, just like put them in catapults, man.
Yeah. Just catapult them over the Rio Grande 24/7. That's my solution. Anyway.
Just like rocket them.
Yeah, that's
and you know what? I wouldn't even care. We don't even have to send them back to their countries. Let's send them halfway back.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have to send them back to their countries. That's
What's
right.
that?
That's right. We don't have to send them back.
Hello, Commander. Yes, everything is going well, and my
Semite is a
knee is getting
language.
better.
It's also a luggage, isn't it? I'm just saying.
But yeah, middle of the Atlantic, open the doors.
Yeah.
Just send them halfway home.
Say, hey, get out. Oh, here's a good one. We the people never voted for this. Let's see, share the screen. We the people never voted for mass Islamic migration, societal transformation without representation. This is Front Page Magazine. It says, Islam, quote, Islam is largely alien to American history. It certainly didn't come into the United States on the Mayflower. Brandon Gill from Texas. I love that guy, Brandon Gill. He's a freshman. He's really good. Observed last month. Gill continued. It's something that we deliberately imported as a matter of immigration policy into our country. Quite right. But who exactly is the we who implemented such a reckless, indeed suicidal act of mass cultural importation? Now, I didn't bring this in because of the United States. I brought this in because of you guys, our friends from across the pond, because you guys are getting it up the ass with these Islamic immigration coming in through Spain, and they spread them all over the damn place. So you guys should be into this. Quite right, but who is frustratingly? It's a frustratingly difficult question, and one we ought to be asking, especially in light of recent events. For 2 years after the Hamas pogrom of October 7th, Kyiv-clad Muslims students did their best Hitler Youth impressions on American university campuses. We remember that. They were all Palestinian, clamoring to eliminate the state of Israel, and globalize the intifada. That's the part you got to worry about. Globalize the intifada more broadly. A lone wolf ISIS jihadist mowed down 15 and injured 30 on the Bourbon Street New Year's Day massacre of 2025. Somalis in Minnesota bilked federal taxpayers to the tune of billions of dollars worth of welfare fraud, culminating in a lethal recent bout of neo-Confederate immigration anarchism and the premature political demise of Governor Tim Walz. In Dearborn, Michigan, this is right, the Muslim prayer mayor told a Christian minister he was not welcome here because he objected to renaming a local street after a Hezbollah supporter. Guys, this is what happens when the Muslims come into your country. When they have enough people, they get elected to offices, and then they tell you, I don't care about your ideology. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your culture. We're taking over. And it has to stop around the world. Outside the nation's capital, a local mosque held a vigil for our leader, the deceased Shaheed martyr, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini. Seriously? I don't know why that wasn't like a target for ICE to just go round up all these people. But I'm a citizen, not anymore. And most recently, the Muslim mayor of the nation's largest city, a man who for years struggled mightily to condemn Hamas and Intifada itself, not only refused to condemn the ISIS-inspired IED attack by two radicalized young Mohammedans, there's a word for you, but proceeded to then host Hamas apologist Mahmoud Khalil at Gracie Mansion for an iftar. I still don't know what an iftar, and it says diner, but I'm sure they meant dinner. Wow. Most recently on Thursday, a radicalized Muslim opened fire at Virginia's Old Dominion University. There is endless more where that came from. Suffice it to say that America's grand decades-long experiment in welcoming in all peoples of all cultures is not going well. What do you think? And it is going particularly poorly when it comes to those followers of the religion of peace. It turns out that Islam and Americanism go together about as well as the Hatfields and the McCoys. I live in Hatfield, by the way. The Hatfield. Or Bill Clinton and chastity. There you go. Which brings us back to our earlier questions. Who voted for this? Who did this? How did this happen? And make no mistake, Islamic immigration and the insidious Islamization of American society more generally is happening. We do not merely know that from the myriad anecdotal stories about the Adhan call to prayer being blasted from minarets at obnoxiously early times in cities like Minneapolis and Brooklyn for the rest of your lives. We have some numbers to back it up. At the time of the landmark Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, where Ted Arrett, why couldn't the bitch hold her breath, Kennedy put through and said he would eat his hat if it shifted the demographics of America, and every year since then, some Republican mailed him a hat with a fork and knife. So there were an estimated, at that time in 65, it was an estimated 100,000, 150,000 Muslims living in the United States. At the time of the 2020 United States religion census, there were an estimated 4.5 million Muslims in the country. That's an army. By the year 2050, that number is estimated to be 8.1 million. Because they sit around and have kids all day, right? They're not working. They're not doing shit. Huge. Now, it's not to trash all Muslims in the United States. A lot of them do want to assimilate. They do, believe it or not, they do. But the overwhelming majority, no fucking way. So huge swaths of the American Muslim community, unsurprisingly, are immigrants. Those in theory who we, the people, through our duly elected representatives, chose to bring here because we believed they would have a positive impact on the common good. I don't know how anybody thought that. I mean, no offense to our Muslims if you're watching here, which I seriously doubt. But I mean, come on. It's antithetical to Western civilization. All right. Instead, we got DC area mosque vigils for a despotic monster who sought death to America, a staggering 54% food stamp rate and 73% Medicaid rate for Minnesota Somali campus activism on behalf of numerous U.S. State Department recognized foreign terrorist organizations. Ivy League calls for the total eradication of Western civilization or more. And there you go. That's what I said. Not exactly a smashing success, is it? In the early decades of the Republic, Presidents Thomas Jefferson and James Madison waged the first war of the Barbary Wars. It was the Barbary pirates, right? They were Muslims, and they were attacking merchant ships, the Houthis of their day, off the northern African coast. To this day, the Marine hymn famously makes the reference, fighting our country's battles off the shores of Tripoli. In fact, those wars were highly instrumental in the initial building of the U.S. Navy by John Adams, President John Adams, who never got to see the Navy finish because he was out of office by the time it was. But Thomas Jefferson actually used it, and U.S. Marine Corps into the world-renowned fighting forces they are today. Yeah, nobody beats our Navy. Now, Americans seem to be letting Muslims, millions of them, into the country through a very wide front door. Far from fighting them or recognizing their comprehensive religio-political worldview as antithetical to the American way of life, we're rolling out the red carpet and doling out fraudulent welfare benefits. But still, who is doing this and why are they doing so? The convoluted and deeply unsatisfying as is who is an unholy amalgamation of bipartisan legal immigration good, illegal immigration bad, besotted lawmakers, ideologically inclined deep state immigration bureaucrats, and well-connected leftists and Islamic NGOs, all of whom work in disastrous tandem to disperse visas to millions of people who hate us and want our nation and civilization to die. They would love to press that button and kill all of us just so they could take over and just live what we built, right? The answer as to why is a bit more straightforward. A zealous belief in multiculturalism, which doesn't exist, and unwavering adherence to the lie that all cultures are equal on the same hand, and a desire to, on the one hand, and a desire to dilute and distort America's ecumenical Judeo-Christian biblical inheritance on the other hand. And for the Islamic NGOs, they get their hira, I don't know how it's pronounced, soft jihad, by means of mass migration. There's just one problem. Well, one problem other than the whole thorny Islamization thing. And that problem is this: we, the people, never actually voted for any of this. It's true. No politician, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Losertarians, Green Party, none of them said, yeah, vote for me, and I'm going to bring a shit ton of Muslims into the country to make our lives better. Nobody ran on that, okay? The massive spike in the Muslim population in America has virtually been all effectuated by shadowy immigration bureaucrats who control the keys of America's esoteric visa disbursement regime as well as distasteful and America-hating NGOs. There has never been a single instance where the American people, or even a statistically significant subgroup of the American people, have directly weighed in on the wisdom of large-scale importation of Mohammedans, whatever, I love that word, into the centuries-old Judeo-Christian biblical tapestry that is the United States of America. So she's right. We never voted for this shit.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, they would like us all dead and the Western civilization destroyed, but they're
right.
here living off of us.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that the brilliant part of it? I mean, they're here and we're paying them, and you're not supposed. Look. I'm sorry, but you're not supposed to pay. Like illegal aliens are not supposed to get welfare. They're not. They're not supposed to get. They don't pay into it. Yes, they do. No, when they first get here, they pay into it. How?
Now, aliens are not supposed to get welfare. They're not supposed to get Medicaid. They're not supposed to get a lot of things that they get. They get food stamps. They're not supposed to get.
Right, but there was this thing. It was a Democratic. Go ahead.
But who's paying the taxes that funds
Right.
those
We
programs?
We do. But here's the thing. There was a Democratic Party prank known as President Jimmy Carter, who actually signed into a treaty with the UN called the Human Rights Act. Okay. And he signed it before it was even finished. Human right. Yeah, I want human right. And he signed it like a dumbass. And the Democrats in the Senate approved it, even though the Republicans pointed out, don't do this. And so what happened? I wish Bobbity was here because he could attest to this. What happened was it said that anybody who lives where they live is a national. They created the word national to mean that. So in other words, if you're an illegal alien living in San Francisco, you are a national of the United States. And then the treaty went on to say no member nation of the UN can deny a national the right to health care, welfare, or education, which is why when Prop 187, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, when 187 in California, when the people of California, before they went berserko nutso, right? That's a real term, berserko nutso. Look it up, DMS5 or DSM5, whatever. Anyway, so before they went berserko nutso, they voted overwhelmingly. We do not want to give illegal aliens all these welfare benefits. And a federal judge within a minute, he ruled, no, that's unconstitutional. You can't have that. Now, nobody said that during the election, right? But he just ruled it. And people were like, what? Well, it's because of what Jimmy Carter signed, which is why I say we should bail out of that treaty.
Yeah, and then there's another one. It's the Global Agreement on Immigration or something. I don't know if that's the actual name of it.
I'm sorry, I was laughing away.
Yeah, I don't get it. Extra testicle.
Yeah, E.T. The extra testicle. Remember the movie, The Extraterrestrial?
I think I actually did see it.
But they really? I thought everybody should see it.
Yeah, I think I saw it. I thought it was kind of slow and pathetic, but hey.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Let me see. What else we got here? What else we got?
Yeah, we got time for.
Oh yeah, we
got time for a couple more.
I want to do. Oh, here we go. My POS governor.
Do you want to talk about Josh Shapiro?
That's exactly the one I'm putting up. My POS governor.
Okay.
Is this the scandal that dooms Josh Shapiro's presidential ambitions? Josh Shapiro, this weasel, he was the attorney general during the 2020 election. And he did not accept a single fraud case that was thrown at him before, during, and after the election. He didn't accept a single one. And he was in on the steal, and I'll tell you how. We know this because he put out tweets right before the day before the election. Remember that on election night, it's going to look like Donald Trump won, but after all the votes are counted, Joe Biden will be the winner. Now that was his pre I don't know what to call
foreshadowing.
it. Yeah. He was trying to have a preconceived notion put into the ether of Pennsylvanians, right, into their minds that, oh yeah, well, okay, I guess Joe Biden is going to win no matter what because he said so. right? But because they knew that something was up. He knew that Mark Elias was changing shit. He didn't do a damn thing to stop any of it. So whatever happens to him, good. Josh Shapiro spent years polishing his image. He was polishing something else, positioning himself as a potential presidential candidate. He hasn't quite figured out that his party will never nominate a Jew for president. They won't.
Bingo.
Yeah, so you would think he'd still try to keep up appearances and pretend to be a decent human being before he starts his presidential campaign next year. Instead, he's making, what do you hear what he did? He's making headlines for something extremely unflattering, a backyard land grab that truly destroys his statesman image and makes him out to be more like a corrupt governor abusing his position to get what he wants. Quote, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's neighbors are suing the Democrat, accusing him of stealing a slice of their land, it's bigger than a slice, to erect an 8-foot-high security fence around his private residence is an outrageous abuse of power, reports the New York Post. Quote, the neighbors, Jeremy and Simone Mock, are currently duking it out with the governor in court over a 2,900 square foot parcel of land located between their two homes in Abington, Montgomery County. That's not far from me. Court papers show. It gets worse. Shapiro is essentially claiming squatters' rights on the land. The governor of the state of Pennsylvania is a squatter. And legally, wait do you see this? The Mocks alleged in a lawsuit filed last month that Shapiro and his wife, Lori, unlawfully seized the stretch of land after initial negotiations to buy it from them went up in flames. Shapiro claimed in a countersuit that he owns the disputed land due citing an adverse possession loophole. That's a legal term in our laws here that makes it his because he has maintained the sliver of property for decades. The land grab tit for tat kicked off last year when the Shapiros first sought to erect the huge fence and upgrade security following an arson attack on the governor's official residence in Harrisburg as they were all sleeping inside on April 13. Quote, this is a case of squatters' rights. Can you believe this shit? This is a case of squatters' rights, which is the colloquial term for the legal doctrine known as adverse possession, attorney Chad Cummings told Realtor.com, where a person continually maintains possession of another's property openly, visibly, and notoriously for a set period of time, which varies by state. What did he do? Mow the frickin' lawn? All right, which varies by state. The squatter can file a court action to ask the court to recognize the squatter, the adverse possessor, as the legal owner through a quiet title action. Think it can't get worse? Well, it does. The lawsuit claims Shapiro personally directed Pennsylvania State Police to patrol the disputed area and keep the Mocks and their contractors away from their own property. Troopers allegedly told the family the area was disputed and ordered them to leave the land, their own freaking land. Shit. However, surveys and tax maps make it perfectly clear that the land is legally theirs. Did that stop the Shapiros from planting trees and other landscaping on the contested strip and even flying a drone over the Mock's property? No, I would have shot it out of the sky. This is not a great look for a man who wants to ask the country for more power. The hypocrisy is galling. Shapiro made his name in part by opposing border walls and threatening legal action against the Trump administration over immigration enforcement and wall construction. Can you believe this? All right. What a piece of shit. It's hard to posture as the compassionate defender of the little guy when you're effectively walling off your neighbor's backyard and enlisting state police to bully them. Senator John Fetterman, who was his lieutenant governor, by the way. All right. He was a lieutenant governor. Or no, I'm sorry. Forgive me. He was a Wolf, who's just as bad as he was in the same administration as Wolf. Sorry. Senator John Fetterman has previously blasted the very notion of squatters' rights, saying back in 2024, quote, squatters have no rights. How can you even pretend that this is anything other than you're just breaking the law? And he's absolutely right. I'm liking Fetterman more and more. And I'll never vote for him. He's a Democrat. If he's a Republican, I will vote for him because it's about, the power of the House and the Senate. All right. You got to keep the majorities. But He's absolutely right. Absolutely right. They created the squatter shit because you had homeless people that was created by liberals. Let's face it, the liberals, they said that they didn't like the fact that people were held against their will for dozens of years inside mental homes. And so they went to the courts, and the court said, yeah, okay. So they got the rule of 72 hours later. If they don't show that they're a danger to themselves or others, they get let out. Well, they had nowhere to go. So now they're homeless, right? You had the bag ladies. Remember all that shit? So you had the bag ladies and all that. Well, if they were living in an abandoned house and then somebody bought the abandoned house, they said, get the hell out. They were like, no, I've been living here for 2 years. Well, they literally, Democrats created squatters' rights through the courts. It's a bunch of bullshit. So he is absolutely right. Squatters have no rights. How can you even pretend that this is anything other than you're just breaking the law? Does the governor's grab rise to the level of some career-ending sex scandal? No. But for a guy with clear presidential ambitions, this hits where it hurts. Character. And you know what he's probably figuring out right now? He's probably thinking to himself, Jade, well, you know what? I already look bad because the stories are out there. So fuck it. I'm just going to continue to do it because I want the land.
Well, the interesting thing I find about Josh Shapiro is he's been so supportive of liberal and Democrat policies and desires, and they don't support him. They will never let him win the primary.
That's right.
Can he not look around and see that the left-wing nut jobs in the Democrat Party hate Israel, hate Jews?
Right.
I mean, they're sitting there waving Palestinian flags.
Oh, I know. And
unbelievable. I mean, what is the man like get some sort of mental fog? He doesn't see this.
Well, he does. He doesn't care. That's the point. He doesn't.
Well, no,
care.
He should care because he'll never get the nomination.
Right, but he's never going to get it anyway from that party. But that I believe it's because he's a Jew that's why Kamala didn't put him up.
Of course, that's why she didn't pick him.
Right. I think that's why she went with Tampon Tim instead.
It would have been hard, but that's the point. He's like,
he's a progressive too.
He's a progressive. He keeps like churning this over, and he's not aware that everybody's laughing at you.
Wait a minute, hold on. I'm sorry, Lou. What was censored? Was it hidden? Was your message hidden? Because I went to try to click on another message to show it up, to put it up on the board, and something said hidden, and I'm like, what the hell did I just do? What was censored? Because we don't do any censoring here. Like if you're an a-hole like Nelson, I'll just kick you out. But I don't censor messages. If you're allowed in here, which everybody is, unless you're an a-hole, like a repeated a-hole, I give people 3 tries. Third time, you're out. It's like baseball. So what did you say to Commander? You can just say it again. It won't be. Wow, how about that?
What was I saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Here's a funny one. This is a funny one. Ready?
Yeah. Commander, I do know that it's bad in Canada. It was already bad when we left.
Yeah.
And listen, I followed it a little bit.
Here you go. Here's one. Ready? Watch this. This is great. Democrats expel Fetterman after repeated warnings to stop supporting America. This is the Babylon Bee, of course. But I love these guys. Washington, D.C. Let's bring it up a little. Senate, you got to love the bee, right? Senate Democrat, for guys that don't know, you probably all here do, but anybody watching it later on, Babylon Bee is a satire site. They have another site that's called
Not the Bee.
Not the Bee, yeah. And it's the same guys, but it's real stories, but they pick weird stories. They're great. Senate Democrats voted to expel Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman on Thursday after their repeated warnings for him to stop supporting America were ignored. Fetterman, who recently praised Trump's military action in Iran, which he did, was expelled under Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2 of the Constitution after failing to fall in line with his Democrat colleagues. Fetterman reportedly said when he heard the news. Ahead of his expulsion, Fetterman reportedly met with Senate Minority Leader Chuck U. Schumer in a closed-door meeting, the subject of which was leaked by congressional aides. Listen here, Frankenstein, you've got some nerve supporting America, and you're going to pay. See? That sounds like him, too. All right, Schumer allegedly said, we vote on party lines here. Got it? But the threat didn't stick, possibly thanks to Fetterman's tremendous girth, which makes taking a sledgehammer to his kneecaps impractical. You ever see his legs? He's got these real thin legs and the big bulky, but whatever. To expel Fetterman, Democrats needed a simple two-thirds majority, and an oversized crane to physically lift Fetterman out of the Capitol building after he refused to leave. Quote, so this is how democracy dies, Fetterman said following his expulsion, with a giant crane. Schumer was expected to appoint an interim senator. He can't do that. It has to be the governor to take Fetterman's seat and get back to destroying America, the country, as soon as possible. At publishing time, Republicans were reportedly inspired by Democrats' impulsive move and had called for a vote to expel Senate Majority Leader John Thune. I wish that part were true.
That part I could probably
figure out. What's that?
That part I could live with.
Yeah, I just can't figure out what John Thune is doing. Here you go. This is great. This is a video of hold on. Let me bring this back.
You've got one here.
Fetterman.
Democrats can't win elections without fraud.
Right. Well, this is Fetterman. Ready? Watch this. This is awesome. Watch this.
Who are confident that the world is better after the death of Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. But his son,
100%.
Kill
every last member of their leadership.
Well, his son is now in charge, and he's considered even more of a hardliner.
They should kill him too.
Well, maybe they will.
Oh my God!
But in the meantime,
I want to play that again. I just love this. You never see a Republican doing this.
You are confident that the world is better after the death of Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei. But his son,
100%.
Kill
every last member of their leadership.
Well, his son is now in charge, and he's considered even more of a hardliner.
Well, they should kill him too.
Yeah, they should kill him too. Love it.
I love it, man. This guy. I mean, Jesus. If he became a Republican, I'd vote for him. I would. Yeah, he's based, man. Old silent move, the guy wearing the old oak barrel. Yeah, we got time for a couple more. So let's do
Democrats can't win elections without fraud.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Let's see, share less screen. All right, so Democrats, this is an economic collapse report. Report. Democrats can't win elections without fraud. It's just crazy how difficult it has been to get Congress to care about secure, legitimate elections in the United States. It's true. That is just nuts. For the record, elections in America are conducive to mass fraud. Although Democrats and establishment Republicans say stupid and fundamentally dishonest things, such as America's elections have never been more secure, American citizens know they are lying. Although voters in national elections must be U.S. citizens, there's no requirement to provide documentary proof. And I say that's because our founding fathers never thought that Americans in a certain party would become such low-life scumbags that they would resort to cheating to stay in power and do that over their country's security. So although nationally there's no documentary proof, okay, just this week, the FBI arrested an illegal alien from living in Pennsylvania, a traditional battleground state, who has voted in the last 5 presidential elections. A deportation order, and who do you think they voted for? A deportation order was issued against the man back in 2000. Infuriatingly, the foreign national ignored his removal order for a quarter of a century. Holy mackerel. And fraudulently claimed to be a U.S. citizen when voting in Pennsylvania elections. The man has been illegally voting in a battleground state since before the 9/11 Islamic terror attack. This is how easy it is for foreigners to vote in American elections. They do so with relative impunity. And that's because, I think about this, guys. I say this all the time, but if it was known that people like this overwhelmingly voted for Republicans, the Democrats would be catapulting them over the Rio Grande River 24/7. Okay, they do so despite standing deportation orders. Because what's going to happen? They're going to deport them? That's how little they fear actually being held accountable for illegally voting in the United States. I say an illegal voting should get death penalty. Why not? I should say someone bringing illegal drugs into the country for the purpose of selling them, death penalty. You get one appeal. That's it. No 14, 18 years, right? No, death penalty. Because then a lot of people will still come for the risk, but then you kill them. Like John Fetterman said, kill them all, right? But death penalty. Because then I would say 90% of them go, fuck that. It's not worth it, man. Let's become a barber. We'll make money that way. I mean, think about it. That's what I believe. This is why Democrat Senator Chris Coons recently made a scene in a committee hearing with former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem when he asked her, will you rule out the deployment of ICE and CBP officers to polling? No. Now that you guys remember, he's saying, are you going to say that you're going to go on the record now? Hold on. Oh, shit. Mark just hit me up, guys. He said, just got word from the chairman of the House Government Affairs. My Virginia bill is still included in HB 397. Way to go, Mark. Because he talked about that tonight. So his bill is still in. They didn't remove it. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine one of our guys got a bill passed, part of a bill? So what he's saying is he was asking her, are you going to go on the record now to say that you're not going to put ICE members near polling places? I'd be like, no fucking way am I going to say that. Why? We don't want illegals voting. Well, because it'll scare some of my constituents. Well, then you have the dumbest constituents on the planet, Chris Coons. Again, that's a racist name. But I mean, think about it. Think about that. Because he's worried that his American citizen voters are going to be intimidated if ICE is standing there. Does that make any sense? It makes no more sense than ICE is just committing crimes by removing these people. They're disappearing them.
Yeah, that the initial approach to it, when they started saying, well, we don't want them in schools and churches. Okay, you get a little sentimental there. Okay. And then they went ahead and said polling places. Okay. So you're including that because you don't want us to take the illegal aliens away who are going to vote.
Right. And we know who they're voting for. The same people that will give them everything that we pay for. So let me read it, because the person, I could have written this. It says, but why would his voters, if they are American citizens lawfully permitted to vote, care whether immigration and customs enforcement agents or customs and border protection officers are near polling locations? Could it be possible that Coons fears that at least some of his voters are not actually American citizens?
Let me interject something there, though, because part of the problem is these guys themselves, like people like Senator Coons, are out there screaming and yelling that ICE is kidnapping people and they're taking, even if you got a green card, even if you're American citizen, if you look Hispanic, they're going to pick you up. And they're screaming all this loudly as they can.
Yeah.
And then so they scream about it, they make the fuss, and then they complain about the fuss to the Republicans who want to put the
Well, they do this all the time. They also create, over years of policy, they create what ends up to be serious problems. And then they stand up in an election year and go, I'm the only one that can solve this problem. And nobody says, but you're the a-hole that caused this problem with your policies. So let me go on.
I asked you this question a long time ago. Did Joe Biden ever solve a problem that he didn't create?
Nope. Well, a bigger question would be, you could have stopped it halfway. Did Joe Biden ever solve a problem?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think he did. So there we go. To her credit, Noem responded to Coons' question with a pointed question of her own. Do you plan on illegal aliens voting in our elections? I love that answer. Given how hard Democrats have long worked to scuttle common sense voter identification requirements, the answer to Noem's query appears to be absolutely yes. So there's that.
You got a quick one?
What
about this one about Obama's Spygate and this new plot?
Is that the one I wrote? Because one of mine's up here.
or
I know you're not
or
supposed to.
or the Hong Kong drivers.
The hustling eulogy. Remember that? Did you hear about that?
The what?
The Obama's race hustling eulogy at a race hustler's funeral.
Oh,
he
yeah.
He was at Jesse Jackson's funeral.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah,
And Jesse Jackson's son specifically told everybody to basically STFU and don't talk politics.
Right. But here's the thing. Well, you're done? What do you mean? You're out of here? You out of here, Lou? Take care, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. What a lot of people forget that Jesse Jackson Jr., he was a congressman in the House of Representatives. And when Obama got the nomination, Obama resigned his seat in the U.S. Senate, and Jesse Jackson Jr. tried to bribe Governor Blagojevich to give him that seat because the governor gives the seat, right? And Blagojevich said no. From what I understand, he said no, but then word got out that Jesse Jackson Jr. was involved in that. So all the bow tie mobsters, they went out there and told all their friends in ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, all that crap, right? Told them all, New York Times, whatever. That Chicago Tribune told them all that, oh no, it was Blagojevich who said, give me money and I'll give it to you. Well, Blagojevich ended up doing prison time.
That's right. He did, didn't he?
Yeah. And when he got out, and I thought he was like a decent guy, right? When he got out, I remember he went on Howard Stern's show before Howard Stern went apeshit crazy, bat cuckoo, libnut, right? And he told all. And it sounds like Blagojevich got a raw deal. It's the same thing they did to James Trafficant, a Democrat from Ohio. He's the one that I think the thing that threw them over on him and said, we got to go after this guy. And they put him in jail. Was he came out, and it was when George W. Bush proposed the Medicare plan Part B. I think it's B for is it B or D? The prescriptions. What is it?
D like
yeah.
Delta.
When he proposed that, the Democrats were all against it. And Trafficant goes up there in the House. He goes up to the podium and he goes, beam me up, Mr. Scott. Like he used to always say that. And he goes, for years, we Democrats have been trying to get a prescription drug plan for seniors. He said, and here it is. He goes, he's giving it to you. He wants to sign this bill. And it's exactly what you want, but you're against it because he's a Republican. He's like, are you guys crazy? Like, take the win. And for that, and a lot of other things he had said like that, because he was not. He was like a conservative Democrat. And he just, and everybody used to ask him in interviews, why won't you switch? He goes, I can't. My whole family's Democrats, and it's a tradition. And he said, I can't. He goes, I'll just continue to be the way I am. So, but they threw his ass in jail for that because they got pissed at him. And he was causing too much problems because he started getting popular on TV, believe it or not. Hey, guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you haven't already. It really helps us out. I appreciate you guys being here. Love you all. You know that. Share it with your friends. Go back and check. Let me see. We got 17. Yeah. Hit the like button, please. Go back and check the description because I got the links to all of Mark's stuff in there. If you want to read it, if you want to go over it. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for being here. It was a great show, and you guys are always a part of it.
Another good Friday evening.
Yep. All right, Dr. Jade. I'll talk to you later. See you guys.
Right.
Love you all. Talk to you later. Have a good one.